Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thoughts and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to the regular public meeting, Henry County Board of Commissioners, Tuesday, March 5th, 2013. Do we have a motion? Yes, sir.
On the agenda, item number 7 or number 8 under judicial. If we could, please, that item needs to be removed from the agenda.
Under judicial?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the published agenda as amended, and the amendment would be to remove Section 8 and renumber, just for the sake of attachments and all that, we're just going to eliminate 8 and move right on and let everything remain the same as far as numerical. If somebody don't move in that direction, I don't guess we'll have a meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion by District 3. We have a second by District 5. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. So moved. We have 2 proclamations today. And our Communication Director would be so kind as to read them, please.
Good morning. As you mentioned, there are 2 proclamations this morning. The first is a proclamation designating March 4th through 10th as Cancer Prevention Week in Henry County and in support of the American Cancer Society Study 3. Whereas the American Cancer Society is a community-based voluntary health organization dedicated to eliminating cancer as a major health problem, saving lives, and diminishing suffering from cancer through research, education, advocacy, and service. And whereas this year more than 40,400 new cancer cases will be diagnosed and nearly 1,600 cancer deaths will occur in Georgia. And whereas early detection of cancer is known to reduce mortality rates and 2/3 of cancers are preventable with basic lifestyle changes and increased physical activity, healthy eating habits, avoidance of tobacco products, protection from ultraviolet radiation, and whereas regular cancer screenings are shown to reduce the risk of getting cancer while also increasing the likelihood of early detection when it's most treatable. And whereas investment and participation in life-saving cancer research can save lives, which is why the American Cancer Society is bringing Cancer Prevention Study 3 to the Henry County community as an opportunity to participate in a historic national research project. And whereas the American Cancer Society's Cancer Prevention Study 3 is recruiting men and women from across the United States to help better understand the genetic, environmental, and lifestyle factors that cause or prevent cancer, and Henry County is uniting with the American Cancer Society to enroll participants in the ongoing study to measure how lifestyle, environment, and behavior increase cancer risk. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Henry County Board of Commissioners that Henry County designates the week of March 4th through 10th, 2013 as Cancer Prevention Week in Henry County, Georgia, and encourages citizens to participate in the Cancer Prevention Study 3 by enrolling in the study at Piedmont Henry Hospital in Stockbridge, Georgia, this 5th day of March, 2013.
Thank you. Do we have anybody here from the American Cancer Society? Okay, what we'd like to do, if y'all would just be seated. We're going to read the second proclamation, And that way, when we all get up one time, we don't have to, we're going to get a picture with you. But we're going to get everybody lined up, and that way we don't have to go and come back and sit down, read an O, and get up. So for the sake of time, we'll just do it that way. Does anybody have any objections to that? Okay.
The second proclamation designates the week of April 1st through 5th, 2013 as Industry Appreciation Week in Henry County. Whereas industry in Henry County is one of the cornerstones in the foundation of our strong, diversified economic base, and whereas Henry County's industries continue to contribute to the local quality of life through the creation of quality jobs and the innovation of new products and technologies, as well as the community service of our corporations and their employees. And whereas the Henry County Board of Commissioners would like to join the Henry County Development Authority and the Henry County Chamber of Commerce in recognizing the pioneering history, resilient spirit, and sustained economic impact of manufacturing and industry in our community. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Henry County Board of Commissioners that the week of April 1st through 5th, 2013 shall be known as Henry County Industry Appreciation Week to coincide with the Governor's statewide proclamation of Georgia Manufacturing Appreciation Week. Be it further proclaimed that the Board of Commissioners wishes to express its appreciation for the vital contributions these industries have made in our community this 5th day of March, 2013, by the Henry County Board of Commissioners.
Thank you so much. Would the American Cancer Society please come up here and let's get a picture taken, please. Next, we'll have a presentation regarding legislation on drug paraphernalia being sold in convenience stores. Council Member Gail Noddy, City of McDonough. If you would rise. Are you talking?
Richard. Thank you for having me today. I'm very proud to say that our City Council came together and worked very hard to, and are very committed to the elimination of the sale and the use of drug paraphernalia in any form in this community, all cities and county, and are dedicated to preserving the health, safety, and welfare of all of its citizens. This project started out with a citizen who is present, Richard Calatoni, if you'd please stand up, and his wife Beth is with him. He came to me and said that he had gone to his local tobacco shop and was shocked that overnight it had just had this tremendous influx of drug paraphernalia, and that he was very concerned about it. Also, he enjoys playing the lottery, and he noticed that at his local filling station and convenience store that all of a sudden everything was just piling up in the way of drug paraphernalia. And I told him, yes, that I had noticed that, and teaching, and that our chief of police had been very instrumental in beginning work towards informing the public concerning the various problems that we were having with the influx of gang activity in the county, and had worked with the students. We were both aware that this was definitely occurring and it was getting more prevalent. So the council was asked to become involved in trying to see if there was anything that we could do. Mr. Calatoni did a lot of research along with others, and we found that there was a state law that did prohibit it, but did not give the counties or the cities the opportunity to prosecute. So without that, we were unable to do anything. There's a federal law that stands that has been before the U.S. Supreme Court twice now, and Judge Scalia said on the second try at making it unconstitutional, he said in his gifted way, do you boys think I don't know what I'm talking about? So there is a federal law that has been made available to protect all of us, but Homeland Security doesn't have the time or the manpower to come to a local city and take care of things. Also, the same thing happened with the state of Georgia. The GBI was charged with having to be called in to be able to make, these, to assess the situation and take it from there. So the council asked our legislative members, our House and our Senate representatives to become involved, and I personally asked Andy Welch if he would move forward and take this to the state legislature and get it changed. So today I'm presenting to you the copy of Senate Bill 352. It was introduced in the House by Andy Welch and by Senator Cosby in the Senate, and it is now law. We can concurrently move forward to rid ourselves of the drug paraphernalia and hopefully protect our young children, our youth, and even some of our adults. I provided you a copy of that bill as it was passed. On the very last page, you will see that it's under Section 5 and of that, and it does provide quite an opportunity. And what it basically says is that violators of the state law prohibiting transactions in drug paraphernalia will be prosecuted in the court. Penalties for a first and second offense include up to 6 months of jail time and a fine up to $1,000. Conviction of a third offense is a felony, punishable with jail time of up to 5 years and a fine up to $5,000. And I provided you with the resolution Plus, we have brought a disc with all of this with the blanks, so if your attorney doesn't want to spend a great deal of time, it's a simple resolution saying that you will move forward to have this occur within the county. We basically stated that we were providing public notice that to all of our retail merchants doing business within the jurisdiction limit and city limits of the city of McDonough, and that we were providing each applicant that comes to the city for a new or a renewal occupation tax certificate, a copy of the law. We also did this, of course, to raise community awareness and to assure the highest level of community involvement. And we posted it on our city's website and in the Henry Daily Herald, as well as we mailed this public notice to each one of our merchants within the city of McDonough. If you'll notice on the second page of the resolution, we gave them, where you see the public notice, we gave them 30 days to comply. Of course, it is law. We did not have to extend that courtesy, but we did so because we wanted them to comply, and we wanted to create an air of cooperation among our merchants. On the third page of that resolution, second, I guess it says second. It says second, but it's third page. You will see a list of drug paraphernalia as stated in the United States law and in the Georgia law, the drug-related objects. So it was very clear for them to understand what they needed to remove from their business. We, as a council, did not move forward. And I wish that Wayne Smith would stay here, but stand up with me, because nothing is ever done in a vacuum, and my council was totally supportive of this issue from day one, and I'm very proud of of the steps our council took. I'm going to let our chief of police speak, because he will tell you what we did with law enforcement and with our judicial group.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioners, mine will be brief. Ms. Naughty covered all the particular details of this document, but we're not asking for any official notification or anything tonight. We're just asking the commissioners to look at this and down the road maybe adopt the same resolution that the city of McDonough adopted. We met with Locust Grove last night. We'll be in Hampton tonight, and then we'll be going to the Stockbridge City Council to meet with them. The biggest thing we had to do in the city of McDonough is we had to educate our owners, our business owners, what drug paraphernalia was, because it's a wide variety of instruments that are out there. But as you know, anytime you walk into a grocery store, a convenience store, a cigar shop, you see all these water pipes and bongs and roach clips and all kind of drug paraphernalia that are in these stores. The biggest thing we wanted to do in the city of McDonough is remove that temptation for our young people to buy these pipes and roach clips and bongs and other things that are not attractive when you come into a grocery store or a cigar shop. So we hope that the commissioners will work with us here in the city of McDonough. We want to run all of this drug paraphernalia out of Henry County. We think if we can get it out of Henry County, it will help with some of the drug problems that we have here in the county. So this is a big step for the city. We only had one business that wrote us a letter and said, look, I need some clarification of this ordinance. And it was about some flavored rolling cigarette papers that are sold in some of the convenience stores. So we had to address that with this particular company. And we have to, be realistic. There are people who use rolling papers for regular cigarettes. So we have to use some common sense in writing this ordinance and adopting this resolution. But I stand before you tonight. We ask that you look at this. You get on board with the city of McDonough and help us. Most of you know I also chair the board that runs the drug task force that we are with the Henry County PD, the Henry County Sheriff, our DA, our state court, our other two cities. And I think this will be a big tool when the drug agents come into the cities and into the county and they see this drug paraphernalia. They can write these tickets and prosecute them in state court or the city courts that they are. So if there are any questions. we'll be glad to answer those
I'd
questions.
like to say that we did sit down with our municipal judges as well as the county judges, and they were very, very nice to have all of us there, and they said that I told them, I said, I'm not trying to tell you how to do business. I just would love for you to take it very seriously and not give them a slap on the hands. And I want to say that we did, for our merchants, it was without incident. We didn't have any problems with our merchants removing it. So with that, I really hope that we will here shortly and within a month or so have the opportunity to come together as one Henry for a wonderful photo op with all of our city councils and our commissioners, and state to our citizens that we are drug paraphernalia free. And thank you so much.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Has any of the other cities signed on to this? I mean, have you approached Hampton or Stockbridge or Locust?
All of the police departments have been, they've been talked to, and I have talked privately with each one of the cities, and I'm making the presentations, and they do plan to move forward, yes.
Okay, thank you.
The only comment I have, I favor this program because I've been tracking it since McDonough through other sources. And what I'd like to do in the next several months is get with the county attorney and draft an ordinance very similar to this, because I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel, and use this for a benchmark along with House Bill 352 and give it to the council in a draft form for their review and tweaking it. Then we would, if y'all have meetings to make this a concerted effort, if you'll just notify me, and I can be on board to go to the cities and all that.
Well,
Yeah.
we have gone to the cities. They're going to, basically what they have stated is that they're going to move forward with this. We provided you with a disc where it's just fill in the blank, and your attorney, of course, can review it, and you can tweak it any way that you like. This is state law, and regardless of, when you get around to it, it is law, and they are breaking the law each day. And now you are compelled by that law to uphold it. So I'm very thrilled that you are listening today, and that you will move forward on this, and at your earliest convenience, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chair.
Next on the agenda, we're going to hear a joint resolution of the Board of Commissioners and the Water Sewer Authority provided for the issuance of water and sewer revenue refund bond series 2013. Mr. Tom Owens, Gordon Morton, and Raymond James. It's Exhibit 2. Morning, guys.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission.
And I didn't mention you, Mr. A.J. Welch. I didn't have you on here, but the gentleman now talking is Mr. A.J. Welch, and then we have this Water and Sewer Authority, Rodney.
Yesterday, the Water Authority adopted its part of a joint resolution to refinance part of its outstanding obligations. This all deals with our GFA debt, and I'm going to let Roderick and Gordon give you the details, and we'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gordon Morton. I'm with Raymond James and Associates, and Raymond James didn't come this morning. He said he had little things to take care of down in St. Petersburg, where our headquarters is. I do have Tom Owens and Bill Camp with us this morning, and of course Bill grew up here in Henry County. His family still lives in McDonough. What we're proposing to do is the authority has borrowed money from the Georgia Environmental Facilities Authority over a number of years, and there are 4 of those loans in the current environment that could be refinanced to produce savings for the authority, and that debt service savings taken over the life of the bonds, which is the final maturity of 2027, would produce, net of all cost of issuance, about $2.95 million in savings is our current estimate today. If you take that in present value dollars, that is, if the money was put on the table at closing, that would be about $2.58 million. Yesterday, the Water and Sewage Authority adopted its part of the joint resolution. The bonds cannot be issued by the authority without a joint resolution with the county commission. So yesterday, the authority adopted a joint resolution that establishes parameters, if you will, for this refunding. We're not, at this point, until you adopt this resolution, we cannot go to the rating services, we cannot go to the market with this bond issue to finally establish the interest rate. So what this resolution is a parameters resolution that defines the bonds, defines what basically the terms and conditions are, and we will come back to the authority after the bonds are marketed with a final transaction and a final interest rate, and the authority has set a minimum threshold on the savings, present value, net of all issuance costs of 3% of the principal amount of the refunding bonds, which would be, in round numbers, about $2.1 million as the minimum. That's on a present value basis. We actually expect, if everything goes the way it looks like it'll go, we'll be closer to $3 million present value, but you need to understand that the minimum threshold is $2 million. All the professionals that are involved in this transaction are working contingent on the transaction closing. So if the market moves away, we're unable to obtain the 3% present value savings, there won't be any cost to the authority because everybody's just working contingent. The only potential cost is that when we're actually ready to go to the market, we're going to have to talk to the rating services, and once we start that conversation and ask them to rate the bonds, there is about a $30,000 cost because the rating services don't work contingent like we do. But we won't make that move until we're very, very certain that we'll achieve the savings. So the idea here is for you, asking you today to adopt your half the joint resolution. That will allow us then to proceed to get everything ready to market the bonds. We're very hopeful of a private placement on this transaction, and we've had indications of interest in a private placement that would actually make the savings higher than what I've presented to you today. We will move that process forward as quickly as we can. We will come back to the authority for adoption of a supplemental resolution that will set forth the actual interest rates, and that will then determine the actual savings on the bond. So we're very optimistic. We've done this. Other commissions have done joint resolutions with the authority in parameters over the last 3 or 4 years, and in each instance we've been more successful than what was originally presented in achieving higher savings, but it provides the flexibility to get the process going, basically get it ready to go to market, and then if the market moves, we'll wait. If it gets better, we'll do it, but you have a minimum savings threshold. Any question? I'm sorry that's a long answer, but any questions?
I think we have one from the distinguished gentleman from District 2.
I was going to ask you guys, I mean, one of the great things, first of all, this is awesome to take advantage of the market and where interest rates are right now to be able to provide these type of savings. But the question I had was, no different than when you refinance your house, you can keep paying the same debt service payment and actually lower the date that everything gets paid off. You know, instead of going out as many years, we could pay it off quicker. Why was that not a consideration in the process? Or I'm sure it was a consideration. Why wasn't that chosen, I should say?
Yeah. I think, Roderick, do you want to answer that?
I think I can answer that. We kept the same maturities, of course, on the, and these are secondary lien or junior lien bonds. These are not senior lien bonds, so they don't degrade our current senior lien status. So we've taken GFA loan, which is junior lien, and now we're wanting to create these junior lien revenue bonds, which are basically the same status. As far as the maturity dates, we didn't extend the maturity dates. We kept the maturity dates the same. We have well over $500 million, that is over $500 million of capital improvement projects that we're working on today, and that's stated in today's dollars. So we have that much in capital improvement projects already identified and listed that we have to do. And the savings that we're taking here, we'll be able to apply towards those capital improvement projects, all the rehab projects, Indian Creek wastewater treatment plant expansion, that's the next big one coming up probably. All of those things, instead of borrowing money to do that. We'd like to use the money we have in-house in as much as it's feasible and practical, and reduce the amount we have to borrow going into the future. So that's basically why we didn't try to compress the payments on these.
Any other questions? The only question I have, in this 35-page resolution, the joint resolution, I know it's in here, but I can't find where this resolution authorizes the chairman to execute this document. Could y'all readily tell me where that is? Normally,
Actually,
the resolution carries the authorization.
If I remember this right, Latanya, but I believe it's just that the the commission adopts it, and then there's a certification by the clerk that you've adopted. It actually doesn't take a signature.
That's how we've done in the past, Gordon, you're correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And there is a signature page on here. However, in the motion that's made today, Mr. Chairman, the verbal motion that's made.
Okay, we need to include that in the motion.
We can include that in your verbal motion, that'll be sufficient.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a question and a comment, if you don't mind. Question would be, just for, I understand it, but just for our viewing citizens that are watching the program, this does not extend the time that the bonds are. We're going to 2030, I think, with our bonds currently.
Correct.
This one would be 2027, I think is
Correct.
what we talked about, which is not extending that. And I think it's real important for them to know that there's a 2 mil tax. There's 2 mils of their taxes are involved with guaranteeing the bonds and other things that we do. And the Water Authority has been very, they've worked very hard to make sure that when we turn the spigot on, we got water. And I appreciate it. I've always been a big proponent of the Water Authority. I just wanted to be sure that, the citizens know that this is a refinance of an existing bond to save money, and that it does not extend the time on the 2 mil tax.
No, it doesn't.
So that was the main thing that I wanted to do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any more comments or questions? Entertain a motion that would approve the joint resolution, the Board of Commissioners, and also the Henry County Water and Sewer Authority, and also add to it to authorize the mayor, the chairman to execute the documents. Have a motion from District 4. We have a second from District 3. Any further discussions? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, no. So moved. Thank you.
Thank you, and I should point out, I think that with what we did, what y'all did last year, and if this works out the way it is, I think we will have been about $10 million in savings over debt service between now and 2030, but just over the last 2 years in refunding. So I think the Board of Commissioners, for the benefit of the citizens, has done a really good job of cooperating with the authority to let this happen, and on behalf of the authority, we thank you. And on behalf of Raymond James and those of us who hope to get paid in this transaction, we also thank you very much.
You still fly?
You know, it's blue side up except over water, then it's a little confusing, but yeah, I'm still flying.
Oh, me. Thank you. Just give you a little background. I've been dealing with this guy for 30 years, and at one time he had 15 or 20 corporate jets. And most of the time when he flew into Atlanta, he would be the pilot, and I would talk to him when he come in over at Feed a Fix at Rome going to Atlanta. But I thought I'd just throw that in. I'm fixing to announce something that most elected officials have difficulty doing it. I do not. The chair has erred. I have just erred, and I apologize. I overlooked the presentation of the Convention and Visitors Bureau annual update. And with that, I would like to recognize the chamber to come up, and I apologize on behalf of me and not the board, because the board didn't do this. I did it. It was an oversight. So
No
I
problem.
erred.
No problem, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Just as a bit of background before you see this annual report from the CVB is that to remind you that state law authorizes governmental entities the authority to tax up to 5 cents on every dollar as spent for hotel motel expenditures. So this is the hotel motel tax. You levy 5 cents. State law also says that you are required to put 2 pennies of that 5 pennies into a nonprofit that is organized for the sole purpose of the promotion of tourism in this community. And we operate under some very strict guidelines under that law as well. One of them being that the money has to be spent externally to attract individuals to come to Henry County in the tourism market. In the 90s, the Henry County Board of Commissioners and the cities entered into individual contracts with the Henry County Chamber of Commerce to implement and use those 2 pennies. The Chamber elected to set up the Convention and Visitors Bureau. It is a separate board from the Chamber's Board of Directors. It has a full-time staff person in the presence of Laura Luker. It is housed at the Chamber. We provide the Visitor Center, the office space, and everything that goes with running the Convention and Visitors Bureau. We also segregate all funds that we collect and receive as a result of this tax money. It is never commingled with chamber dollars. We hold ourselves to a very high standard with all our money, but particularly those tax dollars. You should also know that on the CVB Board of Directors, your own Julie Hoover Ernst has been a member of that board for several years, even serving as chairman for 2 years, and is still a member of that board and voting board. And also the current chairman is Jeff Mills, and he is a part of the Downtown Development Authority with the city of Locust Grove, Mr. Moss. And he currently chairs this separate board. They make all decisions regarding how these funds are spent. The Chamber Board provides oversight for that process. I should also point out to you that these funds are also subjected to an annual audit, which is also provided to all of your financial accounting the staff as well. And Mr. Chairman Smith is a member of the Chamber's Board of Directors, a voting member of that board, and as such, both he and Ms. Ernst get monthly financial reports on all expenditures related to the CVB. So there is a tremendous amount of accountability. And at this time, I'd like to introduce to you the person who has served in the capacity as our tourism director for almost 5 years now and does an excellent job. I think that she's got so much to say, she's been whittling this down for 2 days. So don't know if we can get it all done fast or not, but we're very proud of everything we do. And I think you're going to agree that for a community that doesn't have a beach, or doesn't have a Six Flags, or doesn't have a Stone Mountain to claim for tourism, I think we've squeezed about all of this, about as much out of this turnip as you can squeeze in the name of tourism. We thank you for your support, and Ms. Luker, tell them what we've been doing in 12.
Okay. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties. I've had both laptops this morning decide not to work at different times, so let me get it up and running.
By the way, everything Laura's going to share with you is in that lovely packet in front of you, so you have a slide copy of all of this information.
Okay, and while it is all loading and getting it up on the screen for you, I do want to say that, as Kay said, we have a lot going on here at the CVB, and I would be would welcome the opportunity to sit down with any of you and talk about anything that we're doing in more detail. I know there's a lot of people that this may be all very new to, and there's a lot of information, a lot of detail that's involved in that. So if you ever have questions, please give me a call. I'd love to come meet with you. So just feel free to stop me in the middle of the presentation if something doesn't make sense, or to give me a call. You have a copy of my card in that packet that we gave you, as well as a copy of this presentation, and then a detailed report as to how this money was spent in 2012. So I'm just going to kind of go over some of those things in detail. Okay, looks like we're rolling now. So just wanted to And that doesn't work. Oh, there we go. Okay, so do go through, say, in the packet you have an information about the economic impact of tourism, which is why we do what we do. From that, you can see that, go back here, that it is a huge driver in Henry County. $202 million was contributed by tourists to the economy in 2011, which is the most recent data that is available. The state will release the 2012 data in September. That's about a $15 million increase from 2010, so it is on the rise. Things are looking good, and tourists are coming here and are spending money. With I-75 running right through the heart of our county, it's no wonder why we are perfectly located for tourism. Okay. And also, one of the things that we like to talk about in tourism is what it does for your community and why it's important, just in addition to the money that comes in, what it does for your average everyday citizen. And we say that it's tourism tax savings, and this is money that the residents don't have to pay in order to make up the difference. These tourists come in, they drop money at Tanger or at the Speedway, and it's called tourism tax relief, and it's about $209 per household in 2011. Okay. Go through.
Lovely slide presentation, if it would only work.
And I don't know what's going on, but I know the first thing in your slide, we'll talk about some of our accomplishments from 2012, and you'll see that we work on one of the large expenditures in our budget is our I-75 billboard campaign. We do a series of billboards. Last year we maintained 6 traditional billboards as well as two digital billboards that advertise special events, as well as upcoming just traditional standard. And then also our CVB website. We have a CVB website that gets about 26,000 hits last year, about 2,200 hits a month, and that is information about restaurants, hotels, attraction, you name it. And on the slide, and you can see it, I have circles over everything that we changed on this site last year. It's about 2 years old, and so we're constantly updating and renovating it, but continuing to make it information that is relevant and useful to our visitors, seeing what they look at and what they're interested in. Also, we're in the process of upgrading our mobile website. This is what visitors see if they access their our website on a mobile phone or on a tablet computer. And so we have launched the site in 2011, and we're in the process of updating that site, making it more user-friendly and more attractive. Also, since tournaments are a huge player in Henry County's economy, we have made it, added a button on there so that parks are much more easily accessible, so that they can find where those parks are, and then also a nearby feature. They can literally click on a button that says what restaurants are near me, and they can go directly to those restaurants, and it gives them directions. Everything we're trying to do just to make it make it easier for visitors to find what they're looking for while they're in the area. Also, our visitor's guide, we have a copy of that in your presentation, in your packet. It just came out in January. We do produce this in-house, and 35,000 copies are printed and sent throughout the state. One of the new things that we did add this year, if you'll see when you go to that center section of the visitor's guide, is we added all of our parks. Again, parks are just one of those things that we know are very, very important. People are coming and they're looking. The hotels have told me that that's what their people are asking for when they come in, is they want to know where those parks are in relation to everything else. So we added those onto that map, which you can see there on that page. We also maintain a active social media presence. We have a Facebook page as well as a YouTube channel. I encourage you to go friend us or like us. Watch all of our videos on the YouTube. You can also access the YouTube channel through our website. We do attend several different types of trade shows. We go to group tour trade shows, which are the bus tours, student groups, or senior travel. We also do USSSA, which is the United States Specialty Sports Association, and this accounts for a lot of the tournaments that you see coming through here. And so we go to that trade show every year to recruit and to retain those tournaments that we currently have, as well as we've just started to work on the bridal and wedding market. From the slide, the website slide, you can see that a huge chunk of our visitors in 2012 to our site were searching wedding and meeting facilities. So we've decided that's a good market we need to target more closely, so we are going to some of those shows as well. We also participate in a lot of different advertising campaigns and marketing campaigns. We have ads in the Georgia Travel Guide, exploregeorgia.org, which is the state's travel website. We have did some partnership ads with the Joy FM, advertising the Gift of Lights that comes to Atlanta Motor Speedway. We're looking for what we can do that has the most impact, will draw the most people here. So you have a copy in the very back of your packet. It has pictures of basically every ad we did last year. And as I've mentioned, I said tournaments are a huge part of Henry County's economy in terms of tourism. We hosted more than 30 tournaments in 2012. That accounted for about 40,000 out-of-town guests that came into the area during that time frame. And I'd like to point out that coming up in 2 weeks, March 15th through the 17th, we are hosting the Super NIT tournament again. This has been the largest single weekend amateur sports tournament in the world for the last 2 years. We had 515 teams last year. We are looking for another huge turnout this year. And if you look at the occupancy reports for all of our hotels for the entire year, for the past several years, you will see that March, when this tournament happens, is by and large the highest occupancy month for our hotels in terms of revenue as well as in terms of just actual room nights booked. That same trend continues throughout the tournament season, and then kind of dies down on the ends. But looking at that report, no doubt tournaments are a huge part of economic development and tourism here in Henry County. For that reason, we focused a lot on what we could do to enhance their experience while they're here, the tournament visitors. We launched a text message marketing campaign. They are at the fields wanting to know where they can go to eat and do while they're there. So we had them sign up for a text message marketing program that they could receive discounts sent directly to their phones while they sat in the stands, and that was something they completely opted in for. They got discounts throughout the weekend, and then we deleted their information at the end of that weekend so they were not being harassed. And then you have a copy in your packet. You can see what those signs look for, how we advertise that, and how we got people trying to sign up for that. Another thing that we've been very active this year in working with is the Camera Ready program. That is the state of Georgia's program that says we are here and we are willing and able to work with films in Georgia. And we are the designated Camera Ready contact. And what we have done is we've set up a site on our website, a page on our website with a link on our home page that has information, pictures, location pictures that people can look at and say, I'm interested in this type of facility. And we also have a link directly to the county's Flips Film permitting page so that if a scout visits that page, they know they want to use a location that's in unincorporated Henry County, they just have to click through. It takes them directly to that permitting link and they can fill out that form, and then it informs everybody that needs to be informed about it. And you also have a list there in your packet of 2012 filmings that were done in Henry County. Just like to point out that Identity Thief, which just opened with Jason Bateman, just came out, was filmed on Highway 20. Tyler Perry's and Medea Christmas. I'm sure y'all drove through that a lot. Y'all saw that. Hunger Games, Catching Fire, Vampire Diaries, Walking Dead, all those publications or performances were here, and those are big names. So Henry County is getting its share of the tourism and film pie here. Another thing that we did this year in order to try to enhance that and to highlight what has taken place here is we hosted an event called the Undead Dash, partnered with Get Set Grow, who does a lot of these 5K run events, and it was a zombie fun run. So we had people as zombies, people as runners, and we had about 150 participants, a good turnout for our first year, highlighting the filming that has taken place on Highway 20, particularly the zombie-related filming, which is very, very popular right now. We do a lot with Race Weekend. We do race redemptions. We do a booth at the Speedway. We give out T-shirts. We give out buttons. We have advertisements trying to just draw in those those race fans and tell them what they can do, and then encourage them to spend money locally. We also work with the county. We have a set of part of our budget that is set aside and for the county to use to spend on advertising for their events and their attractions. Some of the things that we did in 2012 with this money were help publish the sesquicentennial activities. With the sesquicentennial coming up, a lot of travelers are looking for what they can do that is related to the Civil War. So that's one of the things that we had focused on, as well as Radio Disney does a lot of, they do on-air advertising, as well as they have games and stuff they set up for the kids at different events. So we've done a couple of those with them as well, and then also worked with the county on publishing and updating their brochures for their Nash Farm, for the Veterans Museum, and then getting those distributed out to the state welcome centers. So, and then I wish I could kind of end with a highlight. It doesn't look like it's going to work for today, but I do encourage you. One of the things that I guess the CVB has spent a large portion of 2012 working on is the development of a series of commercials, videos that highlight Henry County. We have done 5 one-minute spots, and then we took those spots and then edited them down into 30-second commercials. And those spots are currently airing on some national cable or some network cable channels that you would recognize, like Food Network, Lifetime. Right now we're focusing on our bride wedding market in this early part of the year, but you will see ads on things like Speed TV, History, for some of our other publications. In your packet, you do have a card that says View and Share Videos with our YouTube channel listed on it. All of our videos are on that, are on that YouTube channel. I encourage you to go and look at those, take a look at them. They've done a fantastic job. The company we work with did a really, really, really good job. So one of the things they do is work with tourism organizations, so they understood what our mission was, and I think they captured the spirit of Henry County. And I know that I'm proud when I watch them to work here and to represent this county, and I hope that you are proud as well when you watch those. So
it would probably be a good idea, if it's permissible, to even show those on 14. All they do is promote Henry County, and they're professionally done, all local people, and they are really first-class ads. I think that would be an appropriate place to market those. Let me also tell you that the lobby at the Chamber is an official state-recognized welcome center. We have signage on I-75 to bring people to that location. In our heyday of the economy, we were entertaining 24,000 people a year. We have a counter on our door. Now we're down to about 13 or 14. Last week I had a carload of folks stop in, retirees that had gone from Minnesota to Florida and were on their way back, and they left with their O. Henry bars and camellias off the bushes by the Chamber. So if you don't think that's Southern hospitality, people love it when they stop by the Chamber. I want you to also know that we work closely with Mr. Coley and coordinate everything we do to make sure that we maximize all of these sports tournaments coming to Henry County. And in your packet is a detailed financial report on how every dollar that you shared with the Chamber was spent in 2012. Just also leave you with the note that Georgia is now third in the nation in TV and film production. California is still 1. I'm not really sure who is 2. Don't know that I know that. But we're number 3 in the nation for the number of films and TV programs being filmed here. So this is something well worth us being involved in. Any questions, gentlemen?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Needless to say, we're going through the budget for this coming year.
Right.
And we found out yesterday that if you pay early or on time, you get a 3% reduction on what you owe. And I just found that out this morning. Julie ran across that yesterday, and we went into discussion. And basically what that's costing, not costing, but it, just for calculation, if all 8 of them pay on time, that would save them about somewhere around $18,000 a year.
We need to work with
anyway,
you.
this morning we found out that the 3% obviously is legislated, and it is a good figure. So we're not getting as much as we could, but I just thought I'd throw that in. That was just a comment.
Well, we weren't aware of that either, Mr. Chairman, but we will be delighted to take that information and help you make it known out there.
Yes. Anybody else have any questions?
Thank you, gentlemen.
What I'd like to do now is, I just got an email from 2 citizens, and it says, we can't hear the meeting comments via TV. So I don't know what that means to, they can hear, I think, the comments there, but they can't hear the board's comments. And they indicated that all the other stations come loud and clear. Can you fix this? Can you fix the mic system so it records louder? So I don't know if that's something we can address at this point here. But having said that, let's move to the number 10, Tax Assessors Office Resolution requesting authorization to renew the product support maintenance and enhancement agreement for the software used in the valuation of real property. And Mr. Reddick will present this.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Charles Reddick. I'm Chief Appraiser for the Board of Assessors for Henry County. Each year, you approve in our budget funding for our appraisal software for the product support, maintenance, and enhancement of it. This is our mass appraisal camera software that we use to generate the values for the ad valorem tax. This year, that amounts to $48,970.17. As I've stated, this has already been approved by contract in our budget. Also, by contract, the company is allowed to go up 4% a year. And since 2007, when we bought this software, they've gone up 4% every year except one. And I don't know, I was not here, so I don't know the reason that they didn't go up. I'm asking your approval for this figure in the resolution. I'm also asking that once this is approved in our budget, that we don't have to come back before you to ask for it a second time. I think that's wasting time, and I would appreciate your consideration in that, in passing that resolution.
So what we're saying is we're going to have monies available in the new budget to cover this $48,970.17. Is that?
No, sir, you've already approved that in this current year budget.
Okay. So we have, I thought you said we're going to approve this for something next year. So what we're really doing is
the additional 4%, is that what you're talking about?
No, the 4% is included in the figure for this year. We are having to come back every year and ask for approval the second time for the amount of the contract when it becomes due and payable. And what I'm asking in addition to you approving this again is that you approve in the resolution that once it's approved in our budget, that we do not have to come back and ask for it a second time. It's being redundant.
What would be the consequences of coming back the second time?
Nothing except wasting time, sir.
The reason I ask that, I'm sure we're going to do this for next year, but I know that's probably one of the items that wouldn't be trimmed, but we're working on next year's budget, and I would want to make sure that it was encumbered before we actually spend it. Simply because something ends up in the budget next year doesn't necessarily mean it's going to take place. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, it definitely makes sense, but if this is software that we have to have for our appraisal, and I would remind the chairman that this produces half of your revenue, or more than half of your revenue.
Okay, so what the resolution Okay, so what you're doing, you're asking for a one-year coverage from April the 1st of 2013 through March the 31st of 2014.
That is correct, sir, and it's already in our budget for this year.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that, because if it's something with the software, it's imperative that we have that.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay. Somebody move in that direction, that we adopt resolution that's presented before you.
So move.
We have a motion from District 2, we have a second from District 1. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, no, same sign, so moved.
Thank you, Commissioners, I appreciate it.
Next, Public Safety Resolution requesting award of a bid for vehicle equipment for the Police Department. Rod Gray, the Purchasing Director.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The request is to approve an award for an annual contract for vehicle equipment for the Police Department. This is not for the purchase of vehicle equipment. This is just for a dedicated price contract for the purchase of vehicle equipment whenever we purchase new vehicles. This was put out through a sealed bid. The recommendation is to split the award and to award the equipment for the uniform vehicle equipment to Law Enforcement Supply of Marietta, and to award the K-9 unit vehicle equipment and CID admin vehicle equipment to Dana Safety Supply of Sugar Hill, Georgia. And prices are to remain firm for the contract period, which is 1 year with the option for 2 renewals.
Do we have funds available for this?
It's not a purchase. It's just a price agreement. We wouldn't purchase it unless funds were available. This is just an annual contract.
Okay, I got a little confused because the first paragraph said we're solicited for the purchase of vehicle equipment for the police department on a renewable contract basis.
Yes, that's incorrect.
Okay, so this resolution, in fact, does not buy anything, right?
No, it's just to approve the contract so that when we buy vehicles, we don't have to bid
in that
it.
direction.
So moved.
Have a motion from District 2.
Second.
Second from District 3. Any further discussions? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, no. So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, resolution requesting amendment to Resolution 12-209 reflects the adjustment of expenses. Kimberly Morris. Yes,
Good morning,
ma'am.
sir. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning. Obviously, I'm not Kimberly, but I'm Chief Nichols. Good morning. And reason I came forward was in 2012, I asked for the ability to spend some seized funds for a sergeant and lieutenant assessment. At that particular time, we thought we had the figure nailed down, and that's what I asked for the permission to spend. And then, obviously, we went over $1,630. I'm going to let Kimberly explain how we ended up with that overage, but we're going to ask for the ability to make the adjustment so I can get that $1,630.
Okay. The chief is correct, except for the fact that their overage is not exactly an overage. We are not asking for any additional money today. We will have no problem whatsoever zeroing out our total across the board, but there are 4 components to an assessment process. One of those is the fees paid to the University of Georgia's Carl Vinson Institute. That particular line item is the line item that was an overage. That estimate was actually made in September for an October board approval. That was approved in Resolution 12-209. We had to go ahead and do an estimate well before the University of Georgia could actually post an estimate for us. The reason being is that the University of Georgia determines their estimated dollar figure based on how many actual candidates we are going to assess, how many personnel they have to send to our county to proctor the assessment schedule, how many review processes will be necessary, how many days, et cetera, et cetera. So before the University of Georgia can actually give us an estimate, I have to provide them with a lot of information that takes about 2 months to prepare. Kind of a backward situation, we had to make sure that we had approval from you all to use cease funds before I could begin the prepare process. So in September, the chief came to me and said, we'd like to do an assessment this year. We'd like to use cease funds. So I went ahead and prepared the estimate. The estimate was used 2009 figures that I had to use. That was the latest assessment that I had that was available. 2010, we did not have an assessment process. 2011, we had an additional task analysis that's only done every 5 years for legal liability. So that was not a figure that I could use because it was an inflated figure. So unfortunately, the 2009 figure was short by $1,630 because of inflation, because things go up, because cost of this type of value at the University of Georgia is set at the state level. That's not a problem. What we normally do, I set aside for hotels for assessors, for breaks for assessors, and for per diem per assessor. I have 9 assessors per assessment, and we usually do a sergeant and a lieutenant, so up to 18 assessors per year. That figure is specifically put out in the with the understanding that we may have all persons staying overnight. Okay, all of our assessors are not local. They're not any Henry County. None of the police assessors can be Henry County police officers or within any of the municipalities. So I have to get them from around the state. Very frequently, they're going to require lodging. It is usually a 4 or 5 day process. Sometimes I get lucky enough to get them from local jurisdictions, say DeKalb County, Peachtree City, et cetera, that don't require lodging. That is not known until after the fact, but we almost always, I've been doing this, this is my 6th year. I've done 10 of these assessments with the Carl Vinson Institute, and we are always under budget. But what happens is this particular line item of this budget went over by $1,630. What we're asking is for you to allow that payment to go through with the understanding that we will still come in under budget. No additional funds are being requested.
Anybody have any questions? You find in your book a resolution that says everything she just explained to us, if somebody would move in that direction. Have a motion from District 5. We have a second from District 4. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. So moved. Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we'd have a resolution requesting authorization to purchase replacement firefighter turnout gear.
Good morning.
Chief Lacey, how you doing?
Thank you. In your prepared materials, you'll see exhibit number 6 is a request for the purchase of replacement turnout gear from NAFCO. The replacement is in the amount of $53,097 from NAFCO. This will purchase 30 sets of Lion V-Force turnout jackets and 30 sets of Lion Apparel turnout trousers. And these are to replace existing turnout gear that is worn beyond repair or has extended its life cycle and can no longer be used. We have done this in conjunction with a seal bid that we received from NAVCO, which expires June 30th of 2013. This was a budgeted purchase in this fiscal year, and the monies are available for this purchase.
Anybody have any questions or comments? We have a resolution in the book, and it indicates that funds are available in the fire department other uniform supplies accounts to complete this purchase. Does somebody move to approve the resolution? We have a motion from District 1, have a second from District 4. Have any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, no. Same sign. So moved. Thank you. Next, we have a resolution awarding a bid for firefighter daily wear.
Exhibit number 7 in your materials includes the award of firefighter daily uniform wear, and then the following exhibit will authorize the expenditure for that. But the purchasing department received 4 bids for firefighter daily wear uniform contract, and would like to recommend that we would like to recommend that Command Uniforms be awarded the contract, and we would also like to qualify T&T Uniforms as a second vendor. If Command is unable to furnish the materials in a timely manner, then we'd like to be able to order those materials from the second vendor. This is our annual uniform purchase, and the amount of uniforms which will be stipulated in the next exhibit that we will be purchasing in this period is $112,000.
I have a question. I understand that command uniform, we deal in apples and apples on the quality of the clothing. But the only difference is command has as I understand it, has a record of not giving us this equipment we need in a timely manner. Is that...
It's been a number of years since the fire department has done business with command uniforms, and we did experience that in the past. It's my understanding that the police department has done business with them more recently than we have and has had some delivery problems. However, within the last 6 months, command uniforms has been purchased by another larger corporation, and we may see some difference in terms of how they're able to deliver moving forward. My concern with this was that might be a problem, and so we moved to qualify 2 vendors. You can see that the second vendor that we qualified on this, or that we would like to have you qualify for this, has a substantially higher cost pretty much across the board. It's about a 10% increase across the board from command.
I can't find the bottom line tally on the command uniform versus TNT. Where would I find that?
I don't know that there's really an accurate way to look at bottom line tally because we aren't going to buy a set number of each one of these items. So you pretty much have to look item by item and compare each individual item cost.
Well, what I'm saying is that the fire department has budgeted funds in the amount of $112,000.
That is correct.
So that means that all this uniform would come in that range. And then it says that TNT uniforms had submitted the second lowest and most responsive bid. So I'm saying in dollars and cents, we're not compelled to take the lowest bid, but we are compelled to take the best bid. What I'm saying is TNT the best bid, or is it strictly monetary that command is the lowest bid?
I think there's such a significant cost difference in this particular, between those 2 vendors in this particular case, that we chose the lower bid, and we provided ourselves an option if we cannot get the performance out of command, that we can go with TNT at a higher cost.
Well, I think what I'm saying is, for an example, you order $20,000 worth of clothes from a vendor, and in 2 months, and I don't know if that's practical or not, 2 months, you haven't got them. So then, at what point do you go to the second vendor in a timely manner and get you uniforms quicker than you would have? That was my question.
Yes, we are, but per the terms of this bid, we are compelled to take the lowest bid. It's a bid, it's not an RFP. And the process that the chief and I determined was this vendor is not on any type of ineligible source list. There's nothing that prohibits them from bidding on our products. There's nothing that would allow us to not award them if they're the lowest bid. So the thought process was to ensure that we maintain his volume needs, is that we have a prime and a second. If we had delivery issues with the prime, we would make every issue to remediate that issue. If that couldn't be remediated, then we would look to terminate. We're not just going to keep doing the dance with them, but we wanted to make sure that we had something in place so that their needs were met throughout the term, especially with this fiscal year coming close to an end, and he has some funds available and he has a need to purchase these uniforms, so we didn't want him to lose the opportunity, and that's why we structured it like this.
In your professional opinion, you're stating that the lowest bid in this case is the best bid.
No, I'm stating it's the lowest bid, and that's the
sole
decision.
The lowest bid is
lowest responsive bid.
Would be the best bid.
I'm just stating that it's the lowest bid. I'm not trying to play semantics. It's hard to tell until it plays out. I can't see into the future.
So let me ask you this. If TNT was significantly higher, would they be considered the best bid, but not the lowest bid?
No, I would never consider the highest necessarily the best.
Okay. We have a resolution that states if we can't get something in a timely manner from one vendor, we merely move to authorize the fire department to meet their needs with another vendor. Somebody move in that direction.
I move approve.
Okay, we have a motion from District 3. Do we have a second? Have a second from District 1. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, no. So moved. Thank you.
Thanks. Exhibit number 8 is the resolution to actually purchase $112,000 worth of uniforms from Command Uniforms, which was, this obviously was contingent on the passing of the previous resolutions. So this is for us to actually expend those monies and to go ahead and start purchasing uniforms. This was an operational expense that was budgeted in the 2013 budget, and funds are available to do this in our budget.
Okay, we have a resolution for your consideration.
Move to approve.
Have a move to approve from the District 4, a second from District 5. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, so moved.
The final exhibit that I bring for you today is exhibit number 9 in your book, and you will find that it's to authorize the purchase of 15 self-contained breathing apparatus cylinders and valves from Georgia Fire and Rescue Supply. The self-contained breathing apparatus are those packs that we wear on our backs in fire environments, which enable us to breathe air, compressed air. They're used by firefighters on fire scenes and on hazmat scenes. The cylinders have a 15-year shelf life, and we currently need to replace 15 units that have expired. We did have this. This was a budgeted expenditure in the amount of $13,452.90, and the funds are available for this purchase in our 2013 budget.
Anybody have any questions? Somebody move in that direction to adopt the resolution. We have a motion from District 1, second from District 2. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, no. So moved. Thank you, Chief. Next, we'll have resolution requesting authorization to purchase a 25-ton voltage high-efficient rooftop unit for Heritage Senior Center. Yes, sir, Mr. Harris.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. The current HVAC rooftop unit at the Heritage Senior Center is roughly 13 years old, and it's been determined by our Facilities Maintenance Department that it has reached the end of its serviceable life. It's anticipated the number of work over the past summer to kind of repatch and repair, but the determination is that it's not likely that it would make it through this upcoming summer season. That being the case, the Facilities Maintenance Department has gone through and sought out to replace that unit with a 25-ton Voyager gas electric rooftop unit for the Heritage Senior Center. This is supplied by Trane. They are a sole source supplier in this case, principally because the control system currently in place is a Trane system, a Trane component system. In order to make sure we meet, it matches up with the control system that's in place. Then we went with another Trane unit to make sure it was compatible. There is a warranty on the parts for 1 year. The installation would have to be done by the Facilities Maintenance Department. The only additional cost we anticipate would be a crane rental for 1 day to hoist the unit up onto the roof. But beyond that, the Facilities Maintenance Department will be handling all of the installation and any future maintenance on this unit itself. Again, we're asking for authorization to move forward with the purchase of this unit. In speaking with our finance department, there are funds available within our contingency account to cover this cost. Mike Keeble hoped to be here this morning, but he was feeling sick. However, Mr. Hutch Purvis is here to answer any technical questions that you may have.
I only have one question, and this would be to the interim finance director. Once we take this $15,587.18 out of contingency, how much money would we have left in that fund?
607.
Be around 24,000. I'm sorry, 26,607.
Right here. Okay. Thank you so much. If I'd went to the last page, I would have found that. Sorry about that. Andrew had already put that in there. Thank you so much. Does somebody move that we adopt the resolution as published?
Move to approve.
Have a motion from District 2. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Had a motion from District 3, had a second by District 2. Any further discussions? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, no, same sign. Thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Foster. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm here today before you today is a request for a streetlight district, the creation of a streetlight district in the Wilshire Park subdivision, phases 1 and 2. This subdivision is located off a campground road. It's adjacent to the Lake Haven subdivision and across the street from South Salem Drive. Back when this property was rezoned in the early 2000s, the board put a requirement on it for streetlights. The hearing today is the last step in that process. So as such, staff recommends approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Comment is at $64 a year is well, about 3 times higher than the normal assessment, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Keep in mind, we're only dealing with phases 1 and 2. As the subdivision expands, we get more lots involved, we'll be able to drive that price down a little bit.
Okay. So the developers agreed, the property owners agreed to all this?
Yes, sir. The current property owners, not the homeowner. The lots haven't been sold yet, but the current property owner has signed an agreement.
Yes. We have a resolution in the book that authorizes this. Does anybody have any questions? If not, will somebody move we approve this?
Move to approve.
Have a motion from District 3.
I'll second.
Second from District 2. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, no, same sign.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to move that the board consider a 10-minute recess. And it's 10:22, and we come back at 10:32. If somebody, I move, so somebody will second a 10-minute recess. 10-minute recess. Oh, yeah, we're going to come back at 10:32. We're going to take a 10-minute recess. Okay, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. We're going to reconvene at 10:32. Thank you. So y'all can take a break, go to the restroom, get you some more water, and come back, because we're just about halfway through. Thank you. That's what I was on my foot on the consent agenda, that we approve them all at one time. That's what I'm saying. Okay, sit down. Here we go. You got a quorum. I'm sure in 10:32 we'll have a motion to reconvene. Have a motion, District 2. Second from District 5. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, no. So moved. Next, we'll have a public hearing, Charter Properties of Fayetteville, Georgia. Request a modification to zoning conditions for properties located on the east side of Highway 155 south of Meredith Park Drive and 1937 Highway 155 south. Do we have a presentation, please?
Good morning, Chair and Board members. As Chairman Smith has indicated, we have a request this morning for a modification to zoning conditions. In October of last year, the Board of Commissioners rezoned this property to a C3 designation, and at that time, it was planning staff's understanding that the property would be developed for a major automotive repair and convenience store. As a result, planning staff placed 8 conditions on the property, and of the 8 conditions, condition number 2 read that the parcels shall be combined into one parcel prior to the issuance of a development permit. In speaking with the applicant, it has been determined that the properties will be sold off separately, and so the applicant is seeking to have that condition removed because the property right now where it's located, it is on 155 and Meredith Park Drive. If you have the staff report in front of you, we also have a condition number 7 that states there shall be no more than one curb cut along Meredith Park Drive into the site, and cross-access easement for both parcels shall be provided. So planning staff is of the opinion that the modification would certainly have no harm by being removed because there will still be cross-access easement between the 2 parcels. The applicant is here present to answer any questions that you may have.
Is the applicant present? Yes, sir.
David Barber, representing Trio Properties, 180 Walter Way, Fayetteville, Georgia. Any questions?
Yes, sir.
I've already had a chance to talk to Sherry about it, but the question that I had, I just want to make sure I say it for the public's sake, was 2 was put in there primarily to about the curb cuts, and since 7 also is in there, it kind of doubles up on the requirement, and there's no adverse effect to removing option 2. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
Okay.
So what we're saying, it doesn't affect the original zoning conditions.
Yeah,
that's what we're saying.
That's
okay.
Correct.
So it would have no detrimental effect on the conditions.
That's correct. That's right.
Okay. This is considered a public hearing. Do we have any citizens that would like to approach the bench for opposing this rezoning request or condition request? Haven't seen none. Does somebody move that we approve the resolution as published?
Since it's in District 2, I'll move to approve the amendment to remove item 2.
Motion from District 2. Have a second from District 1. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, no. So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Splosh, resolution request approval of budget amendment regarding the New Hope Road project.
Good morning, Chairman and board members. New Hope Road is designated SPLOST 3 transportation project. A budget amendment in the amount of $70,000 is needed to cover the construction and related costs. Funding for this budget amendment is available in the SPLOST 3 Collins Drive for $40,000 and Mack and Starsworth Road for $30,000. I'll take any questions.
Yes,
Yes.
that $40,000 transfer and the $30,000 transfer, those projects are complete?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Somebody consider,
Yeah, I moved to transfer.
move to transfer, approve the resolution as published. Do I have a second? I had a motion from District 1 to have a second. District 2, all in favor of the resolution as published, raise your right hand. All opposed, no, same sign, so moved. Thank you. Let's move on to resolution requesting award of bid to the construction of the widening pavement. Okay.
We received, sealed bids were solicited for construction of the widening and paving of the New Hope Road. This road is approximately 1 mile in length. 10 sealed bids were received and reviewed. Staff recommends the low bidder, McCoy Grading, in the amount of $899,332.57. Funding is now available on this account.
Anybody have any questions?
Rock, could you tell us on what kind of completion date they're looking at on this?
We provided 8 months for this project. Right now, hopefully, all the bad weather is close to behind us, so this road should be completed before the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Question regarding West Panola Road and the first phase of the Fairview project. Where are we at with McCoy? Are they finished? Do they have to still come in?
They're going to come in the middle of this month of March to put down the topping, place down the topping, and turn on the signal. So hopefully by the second to third week, we should be completely finished with that project.
Okay. What about the signal poles and the light poles?
Yeah,
that's all going to be changed out, correct?
Yeah, that will be turned on once they put the top in and they strap it. The road will be open with the signal operational.
All right.
Have any other questions? Does somebody move to approve the resolution?
I'd move to approve the resolution for the $899,320.57 for the McCoy Grading for New Hope Road.
We have a motion by District 1, have a second by District 5. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. So moved. Next, we have resolution requesting authorization to create a SPLOSH committee.
Yes, the current Henry County Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax is set to expire in 2014. Henry County Board of Commissioners needs to explore whether to issue a call for voters for referendum on the continuation of the SPLOSH program. Should the SPLOSH program be placed on the ballot, it is necessary to formulate an estimate of the amount of potential resources to be generated by an additional SPLOSH. Should the SPLOSH program be placed on the ballot, it is necessary to formulate a list of projects to present to the voters. The SPLOSH 4, we're trying to set up a committee for this, and the SPLOSH 4 committee should be composed of 7 board members to be appointed as follows. 1 member appointed by each of the 5 members of the Board of Commissioners, 1 by the chairman, and 1 by a member appointed by the Henry County Municipal Association. The purpose of creating this committee is to formulate an accurate estimate of the amount of revenues which will potentially be generated by the new SPLOSH program. Receive public input from members of the Henry County community as to projects suggested for inclusion of the new SPLOSH program, to formulate accurate estimates on the potential projects for inclusion in a new SPLOSH program, and to present a report to the Henry County Board of Commissioners as to the cost estimate and recommended projects for the inclusion of a SPLOSH 4 ballot initiative. The committee shall meet regularly at public meetings with a staff person provided by Henry County to serve as secretary to take minutes of said meetings. The committee shall seek to conclude its business by June the 30th of 2013. So to report and present to the board's review and consideration can be made to the public meeting of a board of commissioners at a date set thereafter. All committee meetings shall be open to the public and shall be governed by the Open Meetings Act. And we also have Ron here with the Director of Capital.
Were these committees formed in previous SPLOST?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I could respond to that. In the previous SPLOST, it was handled exactly this way. And since it was compressed, we had 14 meetings in 14 consecutive weeks. We had them all over the county in predetermined places, notified the public, and if you'll check, the minutes are still published on the internet. And the reason I know so much about this because Jason Harper, who was the chair at the time, asked me if I would do the minutes, being the executive assistant, which I did. So we had 14 meetings in 14 weeks. This is an excellent avenue for the community, and you have to trust me that the community participated. We had to find a big enough room that would accommodate them, elementary schools, so we went to 14 different places. And at the end, the board had an easy task because it was kind of prioritized to some degree, and then it was the vast wishes of the public. And once you get the vast wishes of the majority of the public agreeing on something, then obviously it's a good thing. So I highly recommend that the board approve the same process that we did on Splash 3.
Can anyone discuss the timeline for SPLOST and when these meetings will conclude and when the project list will be available?
Yes. Well, we would like to start the meetings advertised no later than March 31st. And like the chairman said, we most likely will have between 12 to 14 meetings consecutive. So we need to have everything done by June the 30th. So we don't have a lot of time, but I think we can make it.
That's why we had the 14 meetings in 14 weeks. Like I said, time was of essence and we compressed it, but it can be done. You just don't have a life of 14 weeks. Yes, sir.
I would like to entertain an amendment to that resolution to be able to appoint 2 members from each district. The reason behind that, there's 14 meetings, and there could be opportunities where one of your appointees could not make it. And with 2, the districts are so large, I think in my case, having one from around the city and one from around the Kellytown area gives me equal representation throughout my district as opposed to having just one that would be on the north end or one that would come from Kellytown that wouldn't understand some of the north end issues. At this time, we're only talking about 1, but I think 2, just to have the opportunity, if one of my members couldn't be there for one of the 14 meetings, that could literally turn into a few more, at least I would have representation at that meeting.
Anybody object to that?
I totally agree because Fairview is vastly different than the city of Stockbridge, and the needs in the city are totally different than the needs in Fairview. So I'm on board with that.
Brian, would you?
I'd be fine with that.
Gary?
Would this include 2 for the cities too?
I'm not representing this. I represent the cities, but no, I'm just saying I think it makes sense if you got one, if you only have one there, then having 2, at least they'd have a representative there. I'm speaking more for this board. I would think that, I don't know who's going to pick, there's just 4 cities. I don't know how they'll decide who's going to represent them, but.
They normally do that through, as listed here, the Henry County Municipal Association. Now, what they do At several times, one couldn't make it, so a mayor would attend one meeting from a different city, and then the city manager from another city would attend a meeting. So that's how they kind of work that.
I just want equal representation for my district from one end to the other, because before it was kind of small because it had a lot of population in one area, but after this last census, my district is pretty large, and I'd like to be able to have someone from each.
I think, to answer your question on my thoughts, we'll just leave it one from the Henry County Municipal Association. Because if we do two, then we got two cities that say, well, if you're going to do two, do four. So you see where I'm going to right now. We don't want to get so big that we create this elephant and we get nothing done on debates. Does that make sense? But I would just like to keep the chair at one.
I'd like to hear what Wayne Smith's got to say about this, if we could allow him to speak. He represents the city of McDonald.
Well, we have to, does anybody move that we open the floor for comments? Somebody has to move in that direction.
Well, I'd move that way.
We have a motion to open the floor for comments. We have a second from District 1. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed, no, so moved. So right now, we'll hear comments not to exceed 5 minutes from the public on this issue.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, good morning. Wayne Smith. I'm a city council member for the city of McDonough. I would just ask your consideration on behalf of my fellow municipal colleagues that by the very reason that Commissioner Bowman has indicated that there are differences within his own district, that the same would apply across 4 cities. And if each district is going to be represented by 2 folks, I would certainly ask on behalf of my colleagues that we allow 2 representatives from the Henry Municipal Association. Our 4 cities are very different, but we work together well, we communicate together well, and certainly we would be able, that would allow us to gain that representation, which the end of all of this is to come up with a process and a list that is endorsed and accepted by the public. And so we believe that I believe that allowing 2 representatives from the Municipal Association will allow us to further educate the public toward positive ends. So I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Does anybody else like to be heard on this issue? Okay, does somebody move in a direction? Did y'all want to be heard? Oh, I got you. Does any commissioner want to put suggest a resolution on the floor?
Move that each commissioner has 2 representatives on this task force, and we keep the cities the same. And the commissioners can work with the cities on that second appointment.
Okay, we have a motion that, if I understood it correctly, the resolution will be, the one that's published will be changed to put 2 members appointed by each of the 5 members, 1 by the chairman, and we're going to keep 1 member appointed by the Henry County Municipal Association. Was that your motion? Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Have a second? We have a motion from District 5, have a second District 4. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Okay, all opposed no. It carries 5 and 1 that it will show 2 members appointed by each of the 5 members, 1 by the chair and 1 by the Henry County Municipal Association. Thank you.
I just want to make a real short comment. The quicker we can have this set up, the better.
Okay. Let me see who is responsible for the clerk. Who's responsible for making this happen quickly?
Can we get, for the March 19th, can we get the nominations from each commissioner and the chairman? By the 19th?
March 19th.
The next board meeting, so it can be approved.
I'm going to ask the clerk if she would track that and help us remember that we will make our appointments by March the 19th.
Mr. Chairman.
That's
can I ask
quick.
a question?
Yes, sir.
On the meetings, do you have a day that they have it, or a time that might influence people to jump on board?
Well, usually when we met, I believe it was on Tuesdays. You remember, Tom?
I think it was Thursday.
Thursday.
We found Thursday was a good.
Thursdays, because I know Wednesday's not a good day, Monday's not good, so Thursday, most likely Thursday, and if it gets appointed on the 19th, maybe we can start either that week or the following.
Okay.
A timeline, like 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock
Okay.
till about 7:30.
Let me tell you what we did on the first one. I kind of ramrodded the first one because it was new to everybody. Okay, so what we did, we assembled and I made a time up, we advertised it, we got all the members there, then within themselves, they appointed, elected a chairman, a chairperson, which is Mary House, and from that point on, the board itself determined everything that was affiliated. They determined the dates, the times, the locations. I just run interference, whatever they needed to coordinate an elementary school or a city hall or whatever they deem necessary, then, but we need somebody to run interference. I have a lot of experience doing that because of that, but I won't be available on this particular one.
And if you want, Chairman, we could have our first meeting at the community room at the SPLOST.
That's where we had the first meeting?
Yes, sir. So we can probably mirror the same thing and have the committee there and kind of set the...
Okay, so I'm going to let you be involved in this. The clerk will be involved, the attorney will be involved, the finance director, Michael Harris, and Julie, and the county manager will be involved in this process. Did I leave anybody out?
Ron.
Terry, you will be involved.
Ron and Perry.
Thank you.
And Sherry. And Sherry.
Okay, thank you.
And Sherry.
Okay. Well, they participated.
They participated.
Just to give an idea of the agenda, these people were present, and then, for an example, if a citizen got up and recommended the surfacing of New Hope Road or whatever the project was, a lot of them was the Arts Theater. I mean, it was capital and roads. So Terry and Sherry was present, and they answered any of the technical questions that they made themselves available. So they will make themselves available to answer any technical questions that somebody would have. So that's why I didn't put them in the loop, because they provide the professional expert comments that somebody has. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to have a resolution requesting award of an RFP for a consultant for creating a special tax district for Category 1 and 2 dam rehabilitation and maintenance, Terry McMichaels, Public Works.
Good morning, Chairman, board members. The county has received several requests from some of our older communities that were built around large lakes or impoundments for assistance in their repair of these dams. These dams have been inspected by the Georgia Safe Dams because of the height of the dam and the acre feet of water they hold. If they hold over 100 acre feet of water, have a dam height of 25 feet or more, or are a threat to a downstream home if the dam breaches, they classify them as a Category 1 dam. These dams that I mentioned do not meet the Georgia Safe Dam specification for a Category 1 dam. The owner of the dam is then required to bring the dam in compliance, or if they don't, in the worst case scenario, they have to breach the dam. 3 of these requests for assistance that I know of have cost of repair over $1 million. The problem is these communities don't have that much cash on hand to fund these repairs. They have come to Henry County and asked for help. And this problem, I must say, is not unique to Henry County. If you look around Metro Atlanta, there's several, it's just about every county has these communities that were built around these lakes. And when these lakes were built, they were not built to this Category 1 status. Once some house gets built down below them in the flood path and these dams don't, and they meet the category, they classify them as a Category 1. So this like I say, this problem is quite common throughout the state, actually. Other jurisdictions in trying to solve this problem have created a special tax district for these Category 1 and Category 2 dam rehabilitation type projects. The special tax district would collect an additional tax from parcels around the lake that make up the community to use to make the repair. The county would likely bond the money needed and then collect the additional property tax from the parcels until the debt was satisfied. In order to create the special tax districts, an ordinance would need to be developed. The county, this ordinance would detail out who would be eligible, what would be the boundary of the tax district, establish rate methodologies or structures to apportion costs to parcels in the boundary, and the process of how it would take place. A meeting was held with attendees from the Attorney's Office, P&Z Office, Environmental Compliance, DOT, Stormwater, and the Building Department to discuss this item. This group concluded that we would need the help of a consultant to create the ordinance. Nick Griffith, our former interim director at Stormwater, developed the RFP and forwarded it to purchasing. Purchasing put out the RFP, and we had one consultant respond. A review committee was formed and evaluated the RFP. The committee reduced the original scope of work and negotiated the fee accordingly. The committee also had the consultant to break the work into a Phase 1 and Phase 2 process. The consultant would complete Phase 1 work and would not start Phase 2 until he received a notice to proceed for Phase 1. This was set up in case Phase 2 had to be modified because of public input, staff input, or commissioner input. The committee recommends award to Snobble Dam Engineering of Alpharetta, Georgia, in the amount of $28,470 for Phase 1 and $28,620 for Phase 2. A budget transfer will be required in Stormwater to increase their account in order to fund this work. This is the account number where professionals are paid out of. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and anticipate there may be some.
I have several questions. Number one is a TAD for this county this would be the first, as I understand it, maybe. If that's the case.
I think so.
To my knowledge, there's never been a TAD implemented in the county to date.
Okay, so this would be the first. Now, I know we're talking about a private lake.
Correct.
We're talking about a private dam.
Correct.
There will be a vote within that particular district, right?
Right. Part of the ordinance will determine how that will be structured. It will determine what percentage of votes will it take from the people that are incorporated within that boundary. We will develop that as part of the ordinance. Will it be a 50%, 51%, 2/3, or 3/4? What does it take?
Who will make that determination? This board, since that would be our ordinance?
We will, as we develop the ordinance, we'll be meeting with the board and getting input from the board, but once the ordinance is drafted, that ordinance will come back to the board, and that will be a part of it, and obviously, you will have the final say, whatever that number is, but we intend to get your comments along as we develop that ordinance, so it won't be the first time you see it when I present it, the whole ordinance back to the board. My intention here is to get input from the board as we develop this ordinance, because there's a lot of things that are part of this ordinance. As an example, yes, sir, Commissioner.
You mentioned that there were 3 communities that you have been in discussions with. Was one of those communities Swan Lake?
Swan Lake is one that is in need of some repair of the dam, and I think would be one that I was referring to in this, yes.
Okay. We tried something last year or the year before with Swan Lake. LaTanya, can you just refresh my memory on that?
At that time, the board was considering whether or not it would create a special tax district in that area at the time. It wasn't done in the context of an ordinance that specified a procedure such as Terry is mentioning, but the board did consider that and ultimately opted not to do that at that time. Subsequent to those discussions with Swan Lake, the consultants that Terry hired for the stormwater. I believe we started having discussions about how to move forward with these matters in the future. I think it's important for the board and the public to know that what Terry has presented today is just really a process to have a framework to get that discussion back on board and to establish parameters. It in no means binds the board to actually adopt the ordinance. If in your determination you decide not to, you don't have to. If you decide to send staff back with additional recommendations or directions, staff will certainly do that. So this is just the first step towards exploring whether or not, something can be presented to you all for that purpose.
And it does it, as LaTanya's saying, it doesn't say that we're going to do it for any one dam. You're not voting on actually setting a tax district for any of these communities yet. This is more of the process of how we will go on about doing it that describes exactly how it will be done.
Well, let me ask you this. Who pays for all this in the beginning? I see an ordinance, we can do an ordinance, and that costs us nothing other than just having a meeting. Now, at what point is it expected for the county to pay, and then in the event that the TAD is not voted favorably, then how does the county regroup its, in this case, the monies? Or if it is approved, then do we get paid back all of our expenses through the assessment of all the people that's in the TAD? How does that work?
Well, I'm certainly not an attorney, but I would think that when we structure this ordinance, that once we do that, the county, well, let me answer it this way. The county initially would front the $56,000 for the money. The county would pay that out of, and I'm proposing that it be paid out of stormwater. So the county would pay that initially. Once the ordinance is developed and maybe adopted by the board, there could be fees associated with handling this ordinance or going through this ordinance where the county could recoup its expenses, any expenses it occurred in helping that community to create that special tax district. So there may be an opportunity there.
What we did, what we were considering with the last issue with Swan Lake that Commissioner Holmes referenced, you consider the number of properties that will be in a particular area that will benefit from this, that will be comprised within that special tax district. And you also consider the cost of bringing the dam to a state of repair. And from that, you extrapolate with the assistance of some financial experts, you extrapolate the amount of money that each property will need to be assessed over a period of time, whatever that time period is, in order to pay that cost. The county would then, I assume, be asked to either pay the money up front through some kind of bonding mechanism or some type of funding mechanism, and the county will recoup the money back over time from those taxpayers through the annual assessments on their ad valorem property taxes. It will be a line item, and that money will be paid back to the county over time, and whatever that time period is, 10 years, 5 years, 15 years, I'm not certain. All of that will have to be worked out with the assistance of the consultants who will devise those parameters for y'all to consider. So it's still in its very, very early stages, Mr. Chairman and board members, and so the specifics probably aren't worked out right now. And I think what Terry is trying to do right now is just get the framework to bring those type of issues to you all in the future, and then you all decide what you want to do.
I think another specific that needs to be worked out are those homes that are located closer to the lake and how much they will be assessed versus the homes that are further away.
Absolutely. And that's why, now, you're asking a lot of questions, and we anticipated that this was going to be a lot of unknowns. Actually, that's why we broke it into a phase 1 and phase 2. There may be things that as we get input from the board and citizens on this and developing this, that may make it change into something else. So the initial phase 1 is to gather all this information and say, okay, how are we going to, as an example, how are we going to charge each parcel in that district? Well, the initial thoughts were obviously somebody that's right on the lake would pay more per parcel than somebody that was further away. How do you assess that? What mechanism do you use to do that? That will be part of what we draft in this ordinance, something that makes sense and is a sense of fairness to it. As further away you go, of course, at least impacts your property. We would anticipate that we would charge less for those parcels. There is a lot of things, even the revenue, do you do bonds? How does the county initially front that money? That's part of this development of this ordinance, is to come up with different mechanisms. Do you do it through bonds or other types of ways of creating that initial money? All of that's part of this ordinance, that we will come up with different ways to do that, bring that, when schedule meetings along and say, here's some options on how we can do that, explain those options and get board input, and then move on to the next stage or the next, piece of this development. Because this is going to be quite a complicated process. It's not going to be simple at all.
Did you have a comment or question?
I did, because I think it's very good that we're looking at what the cost of doing a TAD would be, but I think part of it, just in my short term on the Board of Commissioners, is that the issue is how are we going to cover all this cost in the long term on these dams. So that, if you had to give a thought, the cost of the $56,000 is probably pretty immaterial compared to the overall obligation that could compile over the coming years, it sounds like.
It would be, and if you kind of say, well, Chairman kind of asked in a roundabout way, the county is going to spend $56,000 for this program. Right now, it's an understanding, and we have one of the representatives from one of the homeowners associations of one of these lakes. But as I understand it right now, they have exhausted any efforts that they can find of trying to repair these lakes. If that doesn't happen, if that dam isn't repaired, trust me, Safe Dams will step in and they will tell them you're going to drain that lake. If that happens, then that lake goes down. Then the property assessments around these lakes, these communities I'm not an assessor, not proposing to be one, but I would imagine that those values would go down tremendously. So then you have that situation. And I might add another part of this is these lakes do perform certain water quality issues. That's why I'm proposing this come out of stormwater. They do serve to enhance our water quality in Henry County. So,
Terry, most of this money that we're talking about recouping, we can actually recoup it through our bonds.
That, I think we would want to make sure with council that would be appropriate, but that's something we certainly can consider it in that. If there is a way, when we administer the program, if this dam, if a community says, yes, we want to do this, and they vote it in, the county, I would think, would be able to collect the expenses for managing that program. And if there's some mechanism in there to, and I don't know the answer to that, but go back in retrospect and include these initial fees of the $56,000, we could run that by appropriate counsel and see if that could be done.
How many Category 1 dams do we have in Henry County?
I don't know the total. I know of 4, 5 that are Category 4 that are Category 1. Wayne, do you know? 15, I'm sorry. Thank you. I think 4 of them are in distress, I would call it. But now some of these are reservoirs that may be Category 1 but were built correctly and not in the situation of maybe having to be breached. I think the 4 or 5 that I'm referring to are ones I know that Safe Dams have gotten involved with them on.
On the bond, are you saying that if they use our bonds, we have to pledge ad valorem property tax for 15, 20 years? That's what you're saying? So now, we're a little different than a private sector film studio. The fact that was absolute private, but there's no formula where the tax commissioner would actually put that on a tax notice and actually regroup it. So that would be probably a little less risk than it would be just pledging future property tax. Now, I don't understand why we're going to spend $56 just to generate an ordinance. I'm all on board for generating an ordinance, but why do we have to spend $57,000 to generate an ordinance when it's an ordinance? And I understand that what we're doing, we're not doing it just for one particular thing. We're doing it for others that have Category 1 and 2 dams that want to participate in the same program. That they meet this, they have to meet, we are establishing the criteria that others out there that have the same problem, and I know 2 or 3 more that's got the same problem, that they would know, they would be ascertainable, that they could look at our ordinance and tell whether or not they could comply and what would be expected of them. Unless it's group form, I would have difficulty spending local money, taxpayer money, to initiate something to this without being reimbursed, because it is I understand stormwater comes in, collecting water and all that, but I just have I don't have a problem with state monies being used for that. I don't have a problem with federal monies. I just have a difficult time trying to allocate local funds, $57,000, to do something, and there's no guarantee that we'd get regrouped or reimburse that amount of money. So what I'm understanding based on this resolution is we'll approve this resolution, not only it's going to cost us $57,000 to do an ordinance. Is that what we're saying?
That money would hire a consultant to assist staff in writing the ordinance. So the consultant, we felt like we needed their expertise in this area because that I know of, I don't know of any of our staff members that have wrote or been around or create such an ordinance.
So what we're doing, we're going to take $57,000 and we're going to generate an ordinance, and nobody may not ever use it.
That's correct.
That's what we're saying. So I don't, normally we adopt ordinances because there's a need to fix something. Otherwise, it'd be moot to do an ordinance. But I just want to make sure that we're not putting the taxpayer obligated for future property tax in any form that's not kind of like pretty well guaranteed we'll get our money back. Otherwise, there's some risk in it, because if there wasn't any risk, nobody would ask us to use our bond, and the bondholder wouldn't ask that we pledge future property taxes to regroup it. So there's got to be some significant risk involved in that. And I said up front, a TAB's new to me, and I think it's new to Henry County. And I'm going to walk very softly before I would get real serious about spending this amount of money just to merely generate a document. Now, it might be the first step to do that, but that's just my comments. We have comments from District 5.
Yeah, I just had a question with regards to budget. Would this come out of the stormwater budget that we've been discussing, or?
That's what I'm recommending. My recommendation is that it would come out of the stormwater budget.
And that's money that we have to spend anyway, right?
There is money available in that fund balance there for this.
Terry, what's the difference between phase 1 of this and phase 2?
Phase 1 initially kind of gets all the concepts out before the board. all the different avenues of which way this thing can go, and once the board hones in on certain items, we evaluate where we're at that point. Then phase 2 details all that out. Because of the different ways this thing can go, it's hard to say to the consultant to price something when you don't know exactly how it's going to go. So we kind of broke it in 2 phases to put out the initial ideas and the alternates of how this thing can be structured, different ways. Once that's done, kind of the broad concept, then we go back and reevaluate and say, okay, what will it now cost to complete the task? We anticipated what that would be, so that's the phase 2. That's why we put in there he cannot proceed with phase 2 until he's authorized. So what we would do is evaluate where we're at, get the consultant to look at what it would take to complete it. You know, it might be less, might be more, might be the same. Obviously, before we exceeded, we would have to come back. If it was more, which really don't think it will be, but if it did, we would have to come back to this board and get authorization for that.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? We have a motion, correction, we got all kind of latitude. This is something new to me and it's something new to the board, but there is a resolution in the book that would help generate an ordinance, and it does include the 28,470, 28,56, about $57,000 to go through phase 1 and 2 of county fund.
Mr. Chairman, can we let Mike Elrod speak?
Does somebody move that we accept public comments on this issue?
I'll so move.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Okay, we will allow the public up to 5 minutes apiece.
I need clarification before he speaks. Terry, can you identify if that money is going to come from the stormwater budget or the general fund budget?
Stormwater is what I'm proposing. That would be one of the things y'all would need to approve, that it would come out of that budget.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Mike Elrod. I serve currently as the president of Lake Dow Estates Homeowners Association. And it was our association that kind of kicked off this in looking for a mechanism that would help us help ourselves. Please understand, we're not looking for a handout. We're merely looking for a way that we can help ourselves to keep our community from turning from Lake Dow into Swamp Dow. And basically, that's what safe dams will do if we don't find a mechanism to finance the rehab of the dam. Some background, our dam is in no worse shape today than it was 20 years ago. In fact, it's in better shape. We survived the '94 flood with minor damage. But the new software that the state uses now to categorize dams, Wayne Smith is more eloquent in describing it than I am, but basically it's a supercharged Noah's flood in their software that if that happens in an 8-hour period over our lake, our spillway isn't large enough to release enough water, the dam would overtop and it would fail. When it fails, it also would make the dam downstream of us, Lake Dow North, fail. The difference 20 years ago, that still wouldn't have been a Category 1 because no one downstream would have been hurt. But in the years between 1994 flood and now, homes were built in what's now the new flood zone. The new flood maps weren't issued, as you probably know, until 2006 by FEMA. So there's some homes downstream now that if that Noah's flood came, our dam breach, those homes would be swept away. So we have 2 options. We can buy up all those houses and eliminate the hazard, which at this point there's 3 properties involved, and as you might know, when there's that kind of look, the homeowners suddenly think their $150,000 house is worth $1 million. So it's actually cheaper to rebuild a dam than it would be to go that route. And we did all that study and investigation. For years, we've put back monies every year in our budget as a dam rehab contingency. We have almost exhausted those funds in the form of about $200,000 in the studies and the technological, geotechnical studies and engineering and design for the dam. So our next hurdle is financing for construction. That's why we're here. As I said, we're not looking for a handout. We need help in the form of some kind of mechanization so we can pay that on a timely basis. Our association would volunteer to help that initial cost, Mr. Chairman. Don't know that we could afford the full $57,000, but we'd be glad to make that first installment. That would, I'd have to get approval from my board, but I think I could get that across. We're here to try to help ourselves with your assistance. And I'd be glad to take any questions. I'm not as eloquent, as I said, as I engineer, but having dealt with this for the last 5 years, I pretty much think about it when I go to bed at night and when I get up in the mornings. It's very important. The communities involved right now would be Lake Dow Estates, Lake Dow North, I think Lake Cindy and Hampton, and there's a fourth one, Wayne.
Yep, Swan Lake.
Swan Lake. So you got about 4,000 households in the county that are affected. You mentioned earlier, Mr. Chairman, that this might be an ordinance that nobody would ever use. I would argue that your worry should be that too many people would try to use it. And in this ordinance, you could limit that usage to those that are under a state mandate to rebuild their dams. And that's where we are. Those 4 people are under state mandates.
Anybody have any questions? I would like to ask the distinguished gentleman from District 5. Is this something that Swan Lake, your constituents, would be interested in?
I think it would be a step in the right direction for Swan Lake.
Okay. Do you think this would be something that, I know Lake Cindy has some significant, and they drain or lower the lake, so you think that would be something?
And I want to kind of piggyback on something that Gary had mentioned, is that there might be funding mechanisms that we could do through the bond issue and other things where you take the 57,000 divided by 4, and as these issues proceed, I mean, it sounds like we've got 1 or 2 that are, so that limits the risks and the cost to the county, but it gives our citizens an ability to help themselves, and in doing so, help the tax digest, because that's the big thing I worry about. I mean, Lake Dow is one of our, tax digest good neighborhoods from a standpoint of covering infrastructure costs and other things. It'd be a shame to watch that deteriorate. So I guess the long answer to a short question is, yes, I think it would be something in the best interest of District 2 as well.
It also sounds like there's a possibility that it could cost us a lot more money in the future if we don't act.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, yes, sir.
I also believe that in the effort of fairness, I don't think that Lake Dow should put up the entire amount of money. I think if you put that money in the bond, and then everybody that's going to have a dam repaired by this, it's going to take a fair amount of time, then all of those would share in the cost, as opposed to one homeowners association doing that. And really, it seems like it could be done through the bonding mechanism and able to do it. And there's a lot of questions that it would take. I think really it does lend itself to a company that does that, as Terry was speaking of, just to take that much time off of us from having to try to come up with it. Now, Terry, do they also have recommendations on the repairs, or is that just to put the ordinance and the other things in place?
It does. They would not be doing the design of the repairs. A lot of these communities have already done their designs, like Mike's group has, but we will. It does include looking at some of these communities that we already know, and kind of doing an assessment of that area to look at. So it does include some site visits, but that's to really get a feel for what's going on out there, not necessarily to do any repair. So the design of it, is not in this, I can assure you, for the individual dams.
I would assume the design would be substantially more than 28,000 for 4 or
Yes.
5 dams anyway, so.
I believe it will.
I would be amenable to, if it's used, to make part of the assessment to where we could regroup any expense by the county. And so now, if we do the ordinance, and nobody ever participates, then we're out $57,000. But I'm saying that if we could do the language, that, and I don't know how this would be fair and equitable, that how you would split, if you got 4 dams that need this, how you would split some equitable mechanism on the first one to use it. And then the second one, like Swan Lake come in there, then what would their pro rata share be of the 58? But I would go along with an ordinance and a resolution that would indicate that the county would be, at a future time, what's a good word, reimburse the monies that they spent forward.
By doing phase 1 and 2, it's 56,000 if we do both phases. I would think that by the time we got through with phase 1, that we would know pretty much whether we were going to go on with phase 2 or not. So the expenditure.
Can we just do phase 1?
Well, that's what we're looking. I mean, we're looking at phase 1 and phase 2, but the contract is for phase 1 is $28,000. So
let me make sure I'm asking correctly here. I'm asking that you approve phase 1 and phase 2.
Yeah, that's what I thought I was asking.
I'm saying that we won't start phase 1 until phase 2, I'm sorry. We won't start phase 2 until we complete phase 1.
Why would we do that if we, we should know after phase 1 if we're going to want to really go to phase 2 or not?
Correct.
So why would we go ahead and approve 56 when at the end of 28, I'm assuming we're going to end up spending the 56.
Right.
I also understand there's money left in stormwater, and I know that's taxpayer money, but there's some money in stormwater that could cover this, and really it would become a huge stormwater issue if we were to have to start draining a bunch of these lakes around. So
let me try to answer both of those questions. I've got some better information on where the funding from Ms. Sorrow. There was some grant money originally set up in stormwater that we did not use. All right, so we can do a budget amendment and move that money into professional, so the money will be in stormwater, will not be in that fund balance money. Did I say that correct? Okay. So the money is available in a professional account at stormwater. Commissioner, we could do phase 1, and then I could come back to the board and get phase 2 authorized, if that's what the board desires. In the resolution, I'm asking to approve the whole thing, and when we get to, at the end of phase 1, if the board, if we have or get guidance from the board at that time that they don't want to proceed with phase 2, we simply just never give them a notice to proceed to go to phase 2. If the board in developing this ordinance ends up saying this isn't going to work, or we don't want to pursue it further, we would just never give a notice to proceed for phase 2, and we could do that way.
So in any event, if we go phase 1, there's no insurance that we'll ever move to phase 2, and that means the taxpayer just paid for something we won't get paid on.
That is correct.
Phase 1 and phase 2, and this is the only way these people are going to be able to make this happen. There's no way that these homeowners can come up with the kind of monies it's going to take to repair these dams unless we set up these special tax districts. And I think we need to move forward.
Well, I'm not going to be in favor of risking taxpayer money at this point. That's just my pledge, and I think people out there know that. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I mean, earlier you mentioned about the fairness of, how would we fairly distribute this across to homeowners? I'm not familiar with the other neighborhoods, but in our neighborhood, for instance, a lakefront site is assessed for significantly more money by the county tax assessors than a home across the street that's off the water, that's the lake view, and the homes in the backside of subdivision even less than that. So that fairness already exists through the normal assessment process. And that's why we looked at it so favorably, because we have the same issue within the neighborhood. People off lake don't want to pay as much as the people that live on lake. So that's just a comment that already exists in the normal assessment for our neighborhood. Wouldn't think that probably doesn't exist at a Swan Lake neighborhood because it's been there so much longer.
Yes, sir.
We have the money in the form of a grant. I'm curious as if we have the money in the form of a grant now to proceed, why would we? The grant's not really coming from our. It's not really coming from our general fund. It's not being paid by. It is by taxpayers across the country pay for all these grants. But I mean, at the end of the day, if we have the money in the form of a grant, then why would we not go ahead and use that grant?
The grant, sir, it was not for this. The grant that we didn't use was for something totally different.
But we can use it for this. Is that what you're?
No, sir.
Oh,
no,
we can.
No,
you can't use it. I thought you brought up the grant.
What I said. Let me see if I can make that a little clearer. I'm sorry, sir. There was a grant that we were considering doing at Stormwater. It had nothing to do with these dams.
Right.
All right. We elected not to use that grant, but the grant required match money for it. We never used the grant. We don't want to use the grant, but we had budgeted money to do that. That money that was there for that grant that was never used is money that we moved into a professional account for this.
So there's not grant funds. See, I was confused because when you first mentioned it, there was grant funds, and that rung a bell. So
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Somebody told me you raised your hand, Honorable Cash, and I couldn't see you because, did you want to speak?
There's still time for public comment.
Yes, sir. You have 5 minutes. Give your name and address, please.
Steve Cash, 2000 Flat Rock Road, Stockbridge, Georgia, for a long time. As a taxpayer, I'm not coming up here as the executive director for the Henry Council for Quality Growth. I'm coming up here as a taxpayer and as a former landowner in Lake Dow. And I know that the expenses along lake-owned property are far more, including valuations of homes, which has been mentioned in the past. What I'm here to say that the county would be paid back immensely more if they fund this at this time because of the value rates of those properties around lakes are not going to go high quickly, but they're going to creep up. But the value rates of those, if there is a waterfall, if instead of another fall that we've so talked about in the recent past, but if there's a waterfall, there's no income coming in the county as a result. That is flat dead. But if we can see valuations going up in the present landowners, by the present landowners, compared to those who will not be paying as a result of dam faults, I think it would be a shame not to consider this. I think it would be a shame because it's going to be paid more, immensely more in the future, and probably in the near future, because we need these valuations. And we also I need to ask a question. Is this TAD, is it going to be adaptable to other TADs that might be formed in the future? Can it be used?
I wouldn't think so. I think this was pretty specialized for this, just so you could limit the scope and not have a runaway jewelry type thing to where somebody could use this special tax district to pave their 7-mile driveway or something outlandish.
Step to the microphone, please, if you're going to respond to that question.
Just in our general thinking and looking at others, Berkeley Lake, for instance, in Norcross, probably not. This needs to be limited in scope to just those dam owners that have been mandated by the state to make these repairs if they can't make them themselves, to avoid some sort of runaway with anybody and anyone being able to use it for what might not be a good purpose.
Okay. I am sure the county would look at TADs in the future for other purposes. However, on this one, I want you to remember this. Row the reel forward. That's in your mind. What are the consequences? What are the upticks? What is the unintended consequences of not doing this? Row the reel forward and look at it. Look at it in the future as you do in a movie reel. Roll it forward and see what's ahead of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Wayne Smith, 260 Lawrenceville Street. I come to you as a citizen and a private engineer at this point. But one of the other things, and several of the commissioners I think have already touched on this, one of the things I would ask you to consider is there's a very real risk to public infrastructure if you do nothing. Say there was a catastrophic event at Lake Dow Estates. Not only does that dam fail, Lake Dow Road fails, Lake Dow North Road fails, Upchurch Road fails, and that progression moves downstream. And I can assure you the public damage and cost to public infrastructure, roads, utilities, etc., would far exceed $28,000 or $57,000. I certainly appreciate your concern, but as my friend Mr. Cash said, one of the things I would ask you to consider, as several of these gentlemen have put forth, is what's the risk if you do nothing? And I would suggest to you it far exceeds the amount of money that you're considering investing. And at this point, you're not adopting an ordinance, you're actually authorizing experts and staff to bring you an ordinance for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let me ask you a question. Do you have any estimates of what it would actually cost to do the repairs at Lake Dow?
Yes, sir, we do. The plans for the rehabilitation of Lake Dow Estates Dam were submitted approximately a year ago. Safe Dams right now is running anywhere from 12 months to 3 to 5 years in how long it takes them to get to these projects. Our ballpark estimates there, Gary, were, and again, this is very rough, is about $1.5 million for the repairs to meet the Category 1 requirements. At Lake Dow North, pending some additional decisions by their property owners, we're probably looking in excess of $1 million there.
Anybody else like to be heard? Okay, does any more council have the comment or questions? If not, you have an ordinance, correction, not an ordinance, a resolution in the book. If somebody wanted to entertain a motion to do whatever you'd like to do.
Reed mentioned something with regards to the funding. I don't know if you, I'll make a motion to approve, but I can't recall what your recommendation was in terms of the funding.
The resolution is published?
No, I'm asking Reed what his recommendation was, with regards to the funding.
I think we should move with phase 1 first, and let's see what we've got at the end of phase 1. And then, really, no offense to Terry, and I understand phase 1 and phase 2, and you could just, but if we're entering into a contract and we don't issue a notice to proceed, I'm not sure that there wouldn't be some contractual issue. It would be if you gave me the contract. So, therefore, I would say we move with phase 1 and we come back to the board with phase 2. That gives us an opportunity as a board to have conversation about it. Now, I don't particularly have one of these lakes in my district. That's why I'm trying to be, I'm really trying to be, even across the keel where everybody shares in it. But that would be my recommendation, that we make a motion to go with phase 1, and at the end of phase 1, if we feel that we need to continue to phase 2, that we would do that. If we didn't need to, then we don't. Then we're not contractually obligated for phase 2.
But the board awarding Phase 1 only today. And then, when the board is presented with additional information from staff, you can determine whether or not you want to proceed with issuing or awarding the bid for Phase 2.
Exactly.
I was going to ask the county attorney, do we need to put anything about the funding in this phase, or is that a Phase 2 item, since that will be probably more of the implementation side? I'm just, with the bond so is it okay to approve Phase 1 with the understanding that we'll have flexibility in the future when we implement Phase 2?
Exactly, the latter. You do not have to mention any bonds at this stage.
We fund Phase 1 out of stormwater.
Right.
Then Phase 2, when it comes into play, then we'll know what dams we're talking about. We'll have a good idea of what's going on. And then we can tell those homeowners associations, you may need to come to the table. But that gives us an opportunity to at least understand. Right now, the only time we've talked about this a couple of times in Lake Dow and Lake Cindy and Swan Lake are the only three that we've even had discussions about. We find now that there may be 5. So I think we need to have more conversation. Go through Phase 1, fund it out of the stormwater, because it's definitely stormwater. If it breaks loose, it's, unless the county attorney tells me that it's not a stormwater, then I'm going to have to say that that's where we need to do it.
I think the way the scope of the RFP went out, that it's appropriate to use stormwater funds for this purpose, for this exploratory purpose. However, I think it's important for the public to know that these are all private dams that we're discussing. We're not talking about any public dams, but as Mr. Smith stated, it could have public consequences, significant public consequences, if not addressed.
Exactly, and we got stormwater that runs into these private reservoirs that are actually, as Terry mentioned earlier, are performing a service for us to help clean up some waters and stuff. So, okay.
You might have clarified this, but it said in the executive summary, it said an RFP for consultant was bid for category 1 and 2. Now that did the bid come in 2 parts, part 1 and part 2? So if you do part 1, does that affect the RFP that was bid?
I just checked with the purchasing director, and he said that we could split it out the way it was issued. It was issued as an RFP, and so you can
if you do one, it
issue it a la carte. You don't have to do 2.
Okay.
I'll withdraw my first motion, and I'm going to motion that we move forward with Phase 1 with Reed's recommendations regarding the funding. We can add that to it.
From District 5 to take the motion as published with the exception that it would be limited to Phase 1 only, and it would be $28,470. Have a second from District 2. District 3. Do we have any further comments? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, no. We have one in opposition. So moved. Thank you. Next, we have a resolution approving the GDOT right-of-way agreement for SR 155 and Home Depot.
Yes, sir. Through efforts of Henry County Development Authority, the county was able to attract Project Gemini to locate in Henry County. 2 incentives are offered centered around transportation. The first involved coordination with Georgia DOT concerning the permitting of a traffic signal at 155 in their site entrance. With input from the county, GDOT did agree to permit that signal. The second involved assistance in adding left and right turn lanes on State Route 155 at their primary entrance. The state is able to do this by giving Henry County LMIG funds, or that's Local Maintenance Improvement Grant, money from an economic development pot of money in the amount of $300,000. Georgia DOT cannot provide this LMIG money to a private business, so Henry County has to receive and administer the project. In order to receive this funding, we have to have the chairman and the county attorney sign the Department of Transportation County right-of-way agreement on system. GDOT will not prepare this LMIG contract without having this document in hand. Once the LMIG contract is done by GDOT, they will send it to the county for adoption, which will require board action. The $300,000 amount of LMIG money will not be sufficient to pay for the entire project. Once the plans are completed, the project will have to be bid out by the county. It is anticipated that the bid will exceed the $300,000 of LMIG. I might add that the developer anticipates those costs being total project costs somewhere between $380,000 and $400,000. Once it is bid out and we know that amount, a development agreement will have to be done with Prologis, which will require them to pay for all cost of construction not covered by the LMIG, any cost of relocation of utilities, any additional right-of-way or easements needed, testing, or any other monies needed to complete the project. Once the development agreement is approved by the board and signed by Prologis, then the contract can be awarded and work can begin. So signing of this agreement is one of the first steps to get this process started. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Oh, yes, sir.
I noticed the county attorney made a comment that, because it sounded a little different, Terry, and the fact that she suggested getting the development agreement fully executed before going forward with the LMIG. Is that, I mean, any thoughts on that, LaTonya, that you'd like to share and how we resolve out of this?
Yes, sir. Thank you for asking for follow-up. Once we accept the LMIG funds, then we'll be compelled to complete the project. And so it's my recommendation that before the board accepts it, when that document comes down, that we make certain that the private developer executed an agreement to pay all of those additional costs before the county becomes on the hook for payment or completion of the project. And so Terry said that you need to do this first step. This does not bind us to move forward with the entire project, but when we accept the LMIG funds, that will bind the county to complete the project. So that was just a cautionary note for your future reference.
So you have no problem with moving forward with the resolution as long as we follow the steps to protect the citizens?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The only comment I have in the incentive ordinance, or resolution that we have, we give certain businesses incentives to do certain things. And in the experience we've had with two is they get the waivers of hundreds of thousands of dollars on building permits waived, but yet they have not signed the agreement that, in my mind, obligates them by agreement that if they don't completely achieve the objective of receiving the waived fees, then they have to give us restitution, and we can regroup that multi-hundred thousands of dollars. Okay, now that the waivers agreement should be signed the same time as the should be signed in conjunction with the agreement that if they don't adhere to all this, then they have to pay us back. Now, having said that, until they sign that agreement, then that becomes a gratuity. And if I'm correct, then obviously public sector can't give private sector gratuities without some kind of regrouping. I think I read that somewhere. Now, having said that, I think we either need to get it simultaneous or get it before to make sure that we don't put the taxpayer. Even if they didn't want to pay it would be difficult with a contract, but it'd be a lot less, it'd be better for us if we had an agreement prior to that.
We have had discussions with the county attorney has had discussions about that with me, and I think that in the next phases of this that we won't proceed any further until we have that memorandum of understanding. So that, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and that would be besides the development agreement being signed, development agreement being with the county on the cost of the project, we would also, what you're saying is we also need to require that memorandum of understanding being completed before we proceed as well.
I'm saying that the MOA, based on the incentive, ought to be part in conjunction with this. It appears that the first one that got the multi-$100,000 waiver on building permits, didn't sign this, and right now, there's no incentive, there's nothing we can really do to get them to sign that. So having said that, yes, sir. I think somebody needs to cut you on.
Hello? There you go. As you indicated, there were two projects, this being the second project. This one is called Project Gemini that Terry's presenting. In this particular case, the discussions we've had in the past couple of weeks, there was an MOA signed regarding ad valorem taxes, and that's been taken care of, and there was a question of whether it would cover the incentives, and the answer is it does not. Council for the Development Authority has put forth an agreement that is to be signed by the developer or the company itself on these incentives for clawbacks, as you're referencing, per our incentive agreement. This particular item, in talking with them, is a third, if you would, program, and this one is at no cost to the county. The net of this is it has to be in place, as the county attorney has referenced, to have that development agreement in place prior to committing to the LMIG funds. But with it in place on this particular piece that Terry's presenting, the net of it is the money that would be spent and the money coming in would be a net zero, so there's no clawback in this particular aspect of these terminates and lights. On the previous item you mentioned of the incentives, that agreement is drawn up and is to be presented to the developer and the company, if you would, for signature, and that is in a process right now to get that in accordance with our incentives agreement. So that we should work to get towards as well when Terry brings back the LMIG agreement, work towards having that particular MOA signed at the same time then.
Sounds good to me. Yes, sir.
Terry, just one question, and does this, coming out of LMIG funding source, does it affect any of the other LMIG money that we receive from the state? Does it come out of that bucket of money that we receive?
That's an excellent question, sir. That's why I put in there it come out of the economic development pot, which is a different pot of money than my LMIG money that we have been receiving for resurfacing. So to answer your question, it does not reduce the amount of money that I normally receive in LMIG money, in LMIG funding. Okay. So it didn't reduce that at all.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just want to kind of add on, because I think it's good for the public to hear, that this is state money that's come in for the LMIG part as part of the economic development, and then the private developer is agreeing whatever the LMIG money doesn't fund, they're going to make up the difference when the time comes. And so that's what ties back into the county manager's statement that this will have a zero cost to the local taxpayers because of those two funding pots.
And actually, too, in this agreement that we have, any costs that are over the LMIG, we will put in that cost there for the staff to administer the project management for that project. So trying to keep no cost to the citizens for county work.
So you're indicating that we could put the MOA for the incentive part of this resolution, or would it not be appropriate to do that?
Well, the MOA for the incentives resolution is already mandated by a prior resolution that was done back in 2011, I believe. So you don't need to mention that. As a matter of just operational mechanics, I believe the county manager is scheduled to meet with the developer and the development authority. And so I just suggested to him that they kill two birds with one stone and get all this done and worked out in that meeting that they're scheduled or they're working on having, so that this can all be done in one fell swoop as opposed to coming in.
Okay, so what we're saying is if we approve this resolution, it's published and it will be no harm either way. Is that what we're saying?
That's correct. And if the company doesn't enter into the development agreement prior to the LMIG funds, then we won't move forward. But I think all indications is that they will. But the MOA for the incentives does need to get done. And so those things are traveling down the road at the same time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do we basically agree that we need to put some language in here where we get that up front before we start the project, or is that in limbo? You made some comments about it.
We will, in the development of the development agreement, we will take our, obviously the county attorney is going to be assisting, well, we'll draft it, we'll give her part of that information, but she'll draft that development agreement. So we will lean to her understanding as to what needs to be.
Resolution then, is that what you're saying? That doesn't affect, it doesn't need to be in this resolution because you're going to...
I don't think it needs to be in this resolution.
I got you.
In
Okay.
the
I understand that now. If somebody wants to move in that direction.
It's in District 2, so I move to approve as the resolution's written.
We have a motion to approve District 2. We have a second from District 5. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous. Thank you so much. Next, I have a resolution requesting acceptance of a portion of Miller's Mill Road into the official system.
It's in order to make improvements on Miller's Mill Road at 138. The state had to incorporate this portion of the road into the state system so federal dollars could be spent on it. We did move that forward in resolution, and the road was put into their temporary state route system. The work is now completed. Georgia DOT had in the agreement that when we signed it over to the state that once the project was completed, Henry County would incorporate the road back into their county system. So this resolution simply does that. It puts that segment of the roadway back into the county system that was temporarily put in the state route system.
Anybody have any question? Yes, sir.
Comment, Mr. Chair, this was the one where you and I had gone down early in the first year, I think, of once we were elected to talk, and I think Terry went with us to talk with them about that particular intersection because it was very dangerous in the way that it turned out. Also, Miller's Mill Road in 155, and we're able to get that done. So this is just housekeeping, basically, to turn it back over to us. I would like to ask a question, and I don't know if you'll have the answer or not. Are we close to getting the letter for Eagles Landing Parkway to turn it back over to Henry County? Is that or I don't know if Rocky may know the answer to that. Sorry, Rocky, you were headed out, wasn't you? Yeah, trying to sneak away. I seen you. Okay. Call me, so. All right.
No, sir. We're still they're still working on the punch list. They're just about done with it. So
there's several issues there that we had promised a couple of businesses up through there, and I just want to get ahead of that curve if we can. I'm bringing up something that's not related, but I just want to know if we were close.
no, we haven't closed out the contract with GP, so they're still doing some punch out.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have a motion. Somebody want to move in that direction?
I have a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve resolution. Here a second. Have a second from District 1. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Unanimous. Thank you. Let's move on to
Thank you, Commissioner.
resolution requesting acceptance. We just got through that one. Let's flip a page. Stormwater resolution requesting determination of a maintenance agreement with Baby Archon LLC.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're trying to clean up something for the city of McDonough. In 2008, there was a daycare center built at 3500 McDonough Parkway. That is in the city of McDonough. For whatever reason, there was a stormwater maintenance agreement signed with Henry County, which was in error, and was recorded at the courthouse. The way we found this was that daycare center has now closed, and there's a new daycare center that's wanting to purchase it. And because there's an agreement with Henry County and it's in the city, they can't close on that piece of property. So I got with LaTanya to see what we needed to do, and we needed do a termination letter that should be signed by the chairman, and what I'm asking is for y'all to authorize the chairman to sign it. You got it in your books, which Latanya's handed me. The chairman is authorized to sign all documents necessary to terminate any deed recordings. It's just a simple matter. Don't know why the maintenance agreement got signed in Henry County when the property's in the city of McDonough, but we're just trying to clear up some paperwork so these folks can buy this daycare and open it back up. Any questions?
Council.
Resolution has one item of action, and what I asked Butch to do is he was coming to the podium to add a second item. It authorizes the chairman to sign that resolution that's before you, and I would ask that a second paragraph be inserted that allows the chairman to sign any and all other documents necessary to terminate that deed recording that was done in error. And that's because in the event that the closing attorney has some additional documents that they need to sign to effectuate this. He's going to put my bad handwriting up there for all to see. Thanks, Butch. So I would ask that the board adopt the resolution with that change inserted to allow the chairman to sign any additional documents that could be necessary.
In your professional opinion, once we do this, does this meet the objective of what he just asked for?
It's the first step. We'll have to get to the courthouse to record the actual cancellation on the deed records. Once that's done, all of the objectives will be satisfied.
So this,
Once you sign it, then once you sign it, then we'll get it to the courthouse, and then that will terminate this one right here.
so you said baby Archon is no longer there.
Correct.
Okay, so would it be, how do we go around terminating something that they're not a part of? Is this something they would honor, or is this something, I'm just asking? We don't terminate a two-way thing here.
Got you. The easement was in favor of Henry County. So Henry County is now terminating its easement. The easement belongs, the easement belongs to the county, and the county is terminating its easement in the property. And that's all they wanted. The new owner will likely have to sign another or a similar document with the city of McDonough, I'm assuming.
That's correct.
So they still will have one. The county just won't have any interest in the property. So this is what this does. It relinquishes all interest, and the county has acquired in error in this property.
Okay. Anybody up to speed on that? Somebody on the move in that direction?
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
We need to approve with the one. I'm trying to make this go up and it don't go up. Oh, there it is. Okay, we need to approve it as amended, and the amendment is the chairman is authorized to sign all the documents necessary. So we have a motion to approve the.
Move to approve with the changes.
Have a motion, have a second from District 3. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed. Thank you. Did y'all bring this next item out front where we could see it? I take it you didn't.
Has to be transported. With it,
3,000 pounds?
Yeah. No, we see it now.
Morning, Chair, Commissioners. Have before you a request to approve a display of a U.S. Army M102 towed howitzer at the American Legion Post 55, 84 Veterans Drive, McDonough, Georgia. The location of the Post 55 is on property owned by Henry County. As a matter of fact, this goes back, I think it was researched to 1952, I believe, when the property was allowed for them to build their structure on it, and it's been there since. They're requesting permission to display the item on this location. At this point, I'd like to bring up Judge Jim Chafin, and he can answer some questions as well. He's been doing the work on this and has aligned someone to come bring it up here and take care of it.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, it's my honor to be here along with Rick Berry, who's also a member of Post 55. The American Legion Post is Fred said, it's been there since '52. It was primarily founded after World War II with all the returning veterans, and they built that post building themselves. Later, they built the Henry County High School gymnasium, which I know the chairman played in, and I did as well. Those folks coming back from World War II were truly the greatest generation and did a lot in this community. Robbie Robinson is our current commander. He was unable to be here this afternoon to be with you because of a family illness. So I'm going to take over on his behalf. This request, we have to have your permission. I started this process in 2008 by making an application to the Army for the loan of a military piece of equipment. They have a very strict structure, as you might imagine, for lending out their armaments. And last fall, I got a call saying we had risen to the top of the list. And I said, what do we got? We got an M102. I said, what is an M102? An M102 is the follow-on from the M101, which makes sense if you're in the military. M101 is a 105 millimeter cannon used in World War II, and it was 2.5 tons. I'm going to give you a lot of military information. I hope nobody from the Army is here to correct me because I did my service in the Air Force along with the chairman, so we're on risky ground here. But the M102 came along in Vietnam. It dropped a ton, so it was air mobile. It was the backbone of the artillery support for the Vietnam War. It continued in use up to Iraqi freedom. It was last used there. It has been officially retired now. It has been replaced by the M119. Now, the M102 105 millimeter howitzer towed is got a range of over 11,000 meters, so we think we can hit anything in Henry County from post 55, and we look forward to having this permanent, tangible display of military hardware to honor the veterans of this county and give them something to look at to relate to that service. We hope that you'll approve that. I want to take this opportunity to thank Fred for his help in getting this process going, his coordination with Bennett Motor Express, a local business, a local international business, is going to go and pick it up for us from Anniston Army Depot gratis, and we appreciate that. Chief Nichols from the Henry County Police Department has offered to let us store it in his evidence yard so it'll be secure while we have to demilitarize it. The Army said we can't shoot it, so we're going to have to do some welding on it to demilitarize it. Rick made arrangements with a guard unit out of Griffin that will come and certify that it's been demilitarized, and then we can put it on the concrete pad that the Walls family was instrumental in getting constructed there. I hope you approve it since we already have the concrete pad. But the Walls family has been instrumental in that post over the years, with Cleet's father and his mother being very, very important members. So, with all that being said, I ask that you approve the display of the M102 105 millimeter towed howitzer at post 55.
We do not have a motion. We have a resolution to somebody move in that direction.
So approved.
We have a motion from District 4. We have a second from District 1. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We had 2 for public comments, and it appears that Mr. Cash has left. He was like to be heard, but I don't know if he comes back in, we'll hear him. Otherwise, we have Mr. Ken Sherman, 231 River Trace Court, would like to approach. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I wanted to remind you back into your February called meeting regarding decisions that needed to be made with the airport, and that we relieved the contractually bound company that was managing it from services. And along with that decision, as some of us have learned latent and some new going in, that the benefits of a vision and a focused plan and timetable along with some financial plan to accomplish the necessary improvements, have all but vanished. We have a mere 5.5 months, understanding that Phase 1 is at least at some level underway at this point, whether or not it's closing down the runways to limit any revenue being generated. But in roughly 5.5 months, you have your largest revenue generating ability for that airport at this particular time, that being the Labor Day weekend race. I always have concerns over projects that are slated to be completed in a given period of time, which we rely on. I have a hard time coming up with any project that manages to finish itself on time. And running anywhere close to the race is going to cause serious havoc to those that like to fly in. Not to mention, the Convention and Visitors Bureau would certainly like the information to be able to send out that we can now handle aircraft of this given size for our airport. Atlanta Motor Speedway would like to be able to put that out to their race car teams. As it's been in the past, many have flown in, and we have all but filled the airport up, but a lot of those aircraft had to fly in signing a waiver with their own insurance company saying, okay, I'll fly in there without any insurance because it is not appropriate for our size aircraft. The large opportunity that we do have in front of us with the airport and the funds that it's going to require that we put in to accomplish the Phase 1 and ultimately Phase 2, which does have to be done or we lose the money the whole way around and we're on the hook for everything, needs to be given strong consideration as to what type of oversight group, however you want to call it or name it, that will be utilized to oversee this very important development for Henry County. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't have any comments at this time. Does any commissioners like to make a comment at this time for any reason? Hearing none. County Manager, do you have any comments?
Yes, I do, Chairman. The contract was let for the construction of the airport and has various parts to it, as even was just referenced. And there has been a request for a change order. According to the a resolution that was passed by the board back in 2008, Resolution 808-02, gave the county manager approval on change orders up to 5% of the total contract, not to exceed $50,000. The sum of the change orders that I want to put into the record is a net 40 cents. The scope of the work includes additional grading of the fill material, stockpile location, a new detention pond, installation of an outlet control structure, pipe and head wall, and a modification of the erosion control BMPs. Scope also deletes the installation of the Aqua Swirl concentrator Model AS4 and removes the halogen runway lighting items specified in the base bid in lieu of LED runway lighting specified as part of the additive bid. So basically, what I'll be submitting to the county clerk to put into record is the net items, all these items that are in this change order, but again, the sum total of all the items that are being changed, added, and deleted comes to a net 40 cents. So as far as the 5% goes, it's a 0% in this particular case, but I took care of it. GDOT was wanting that signed, and I'm just putting it into the minutes so that records are maintained as to the changes that were made in the contract.
Thank you so much. Do you have any more comments?
That is it.
The county manager, do you have any comments?
County Attorney, no, sir, I don't have any comments.
Upcoming meetings Tuesday, March the 19th, and that's the day we're going to have all our names in for the Splash 4, for everybody making note of that. 6:30 p.m. be a regular meeting. Tuesday, April the 2nd, 9 a.m., and Tuesday, April the 16th at 6:30 p.m. are regular meetings. Do we have anything for executive session?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
No? Is that no?
I have a personnel matter that I do need to bring to executive session.
you have a personnel issue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Somebody move that we go into executive session to adjourn into executive session in accordance with the provision of OCGA 50-14-3 and other applicable laws and pertinent to the advice of county attorney for the purposes of personnel matters, and that will be personnel matters only. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's all.
Counsel, do you have any legal issues?
No, sir, I have nothing for
Okay.
executive
If
session.
somebody will move in that direction and limit it to personnel matters only, you make a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion from District 2, second by District 1, to go into executive session. Does anybody have any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. What did I leave out? Shays, look at me as if I left something out.
It was, District 3 made the motion.
I'm sorry, District 3. Okay, and District 1 seconded. But all 6 of us voted for it. Thank you. It's kind of mood, isn't it? I never had to do this. Okay, we're going to go into executive session. We'll be out. Sir? No, sir. We have a motion to reconvene. We have a motion from District 4, second from District 1. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Correction, raise your right hand. Okay.
Can I tell the TV we're coming back on?
Yeah, he give me a thumbs up.
Oh, okay, he got it.
Okay. So somebody move to approve the executive session and approve the affidavit and resolution pertaining to executive session.
So moved.
We have a motion from District 4. Second from District 5. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Pass unanimously. Does somebody move we adjourn?
I'll make that.
We have a motion from District 2, second from District 1 to adjourn. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you.